Hello. Sorry. Hang on. Trying to get the camera right. It keeps wanting to fall. Or just show the ceiling. There we go. Oh, nope. Not quite. You know what? It's good enough. Am I late? Yeah, I'm a little late. Hi! I'm Rosebud Reads, and welcome to my book garden, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. Things have gone a little scattered tonight. I'm late because I kept trying to light that candle, and apparently it does not want to light right now. So, no candle tonight. Hello, Chi-Chi Kiki. How you doing today? Good, I hope. It's Thursday. It's almost the weekend. Oh, goodness. And I'm looking a little ragged. But I'm here, and I am excited for tonight's read-through. We definitely left it on a cliffhanger. What is my hair doing? It's got like this weird swoosh. Whatever. I'm glad you're doing good. I see someone else is here too. Hello to you. Okay, before I forget, because I've been forgetting a lot. This is the Imperial Uncle. It was initially published by Peachtree, and possibly might be picked up in the future, but I'm not the author, I'm not the publisher, I'm not getting anything from this other than the enjoyment of doing it. Hello, Peacock Pages. So the only thing I own is the physical copy in front of me and my time. So that's it. I don't own anything. Why do I feel like I'm something? Oh, this is a very chill live stream. If you couldn't already tell, I feel like you could probably already tell. And if that's not really your flavor, maybe stick around, see if it might be. And if it still isn't, well, I hope you at least had a great time while you were here. Maybe give it a try with a different series. Like, we are working through a wide variety, like Little Mushroom was sci-fi, and Golden Terrace was kind of a bit more historical. This one is definitely a bit different considering its first-person perspective for a lot of it, if not all of it, so far. And I know that's not everybody's thing. It's not necessarily my thing all the time, but I have surprisingly been enjoying this one. I think partially just because the character themselves is kind of funny. Like, just in how he thinks and the things that keep happening to him. But yeah, I get that it's not everybody's flavor. This is Danmei, or BL. So there is definitely romance between two male partners, possibly more, as we have seen. What? Okay. I'm sorry. My hair is just driving me crazy tonight. That's even worse. By the way, how are you doing, Peacock Pages? I know I said hello to Chi-Chi Kiki, but I got a little distracted doing the disclaimers. But yes. Scattered. I'm scattered tonight. It's almost the weekend, and I have used a lot of energy today. But yes. Let's see. Anybody got weekend plans? Anything fun? Exciting? Special? Doesn't have to be super exciting, but just something fun or out of the ordinary. Let me know if you want to. I don't think I have anything this weekend, which sometimes is just nice. Like normal chores, normal things going on, but also time to relax and get through stuff. So yes. All right. So I think we'll just kind of get into it because I kind of, oh, wait. I have my phone and I have not muted it, and last time I did not, and we had quite a number of distractions. Okay, there we go. I will remove the bookmark and place it there. Hopefully it will not fall. But yes, so last time we ended on our cliffhanger with our main character taking poison. And, well, prior to that, kind of got caught on his own pitchfork, attempting to bring forth the news about this potential revolt and trying to convince some of the people, like, hey, maybe don't do that. Like Supervisor Yoon, he was kind of tried to convince him, like, hey, maybe don't do this, and then failed, and then he got double crossed by Supervisor Yoon and Chushun and kind of everybody. And he decided, instead of kind of trying to own up to it and not being believed, to be like, yes, you caught me. This was totally my plan. You're right. I am such a villain. Such a villain. And if my uncle wakes up, like, ignore him. Tell him it's all good. It's all good. Nothing happened. I am the big evil. Basically, tell him to shut his trap. And I'm a swan dive out of here. Peace. Yeah, I'm still frustrated about that. Peacock pages. A little bit too. Like, just kind of, I as I said before, I feel such Megamind vibes there, where he's trying so hard at that point to be the villain, where it's almost comical. Like, very frustrating, but almost comical. And I mean, it's mid-book, like, when he decides he's going to poison himself, which I'm kind of curious where he got the poison. And apparently, if I'm reading it right, where he's like now gonna wake up. It's not the best poison either. Maybe someone switched it out. And yes, as you said before, Chichikiki, he is the drama. But let's see what Mr. Drama's got going on. We're going to do chapter 7 and 8 tonight, so it might be a little bit longer of... Wait. How big is 9? 9's pretty short, so I guess we might be doing chapter 9. Wait, what am I doing? Yeah, we might be doing chapter 9. Depends once we get there. Okay. Maybe. No, I think we'll just do 7 and 8. Okay. Chapter 7. I passed through the dense greenery of the trellis, emerged from a moon gate, and scrutinized the house in front of me. It was a simple but elegant 2-story house, not large, with an airy hall below containing a small retiring room, and an upstairs divided into a rear bedroom and another hall in front. A veranda projected outward, accessible by opening a door in the hall. It had a wraparound wooden railing with a hanging screen of slender bamboo. It would be just right for me to live in alone. Bai Rujin looked at me and said, "Xiao Shun, did you like the look of it?" "It's all right," I said. "Why do all you Southerners build your houses with 2 floors? It's hard to feel grounded sleeping upstairs." I had planned on buying a small compound with 2 or 3 rooms. At any rate, I would be living there alone. Too much space would be cumbersome. But all the houses that met the eye in Chengshou had multiple floors. My little 2-room compound with a low half-wall, banana palm, drinking well, and grape trellis was nowhere to be found. Bai Rujin had told me that a family patriarch in the east of the city had died, and his sons and daughters were splitting up the family property. They had a little house they were eager to get off their hands in exchange for cash, and it was quite suitable for me. He'd asked if I was interested and dragged me off to see it. Next to Bai Rujin was the family's younger son, surnamed Hong, given name Shin. He was in his 40s, small, skinny, and clever, with a ruddy complexion glowing with health. He didn't look one bit like an ardently filial son who had just lost his father. Listening to me, he immediately said with a smile, "I can tell Let's try that again. I can tell Mr. Shou is from the north. Chengshou lies in the southeast, so it's wet and humid. Living on the second floor keeps the damp away." He looked me over. "Seems Mr. Shao is planning to settle down in Chengshou." "You don't know, second Squire Hong," said Bai Rujin. "Master Shao is a major traveling merchant. He's even done business in Goryeo. I got to know Master Shao a year or two back when I was restocking my medicines. He owns a half interest in my new shop on Changlong Street. I figure he'll still be all over the place, but now that he has a business here, he wants to buy a house to have somewhere to put up." Hong Xin said repeatedly that it was an honor to meet me. In a rush, I said modestly, "I can't claim to be a major traveling merchant. I just travel around selling a few sun-dry goods as I go, eking out a living." Hong Xin said, "If Master Shao likes the house, I'll sell it for a low price. Call it making a friend." I'm sure. "Oh yes," he went on. "I haven't asked Master Shao's full name. My mother has been sick for a long time, and we want to buy some ginseng to make into a decoction for her. The effects of aged ginseng might be too much at her age. I've heard that while the ginseng in Goryeo is bland, its effects are also milder. If you happen to have any, Master Shao, could you keep a couple of pieces back for me?" Of course, I said. "I think I still have some on hand. All top quality Goryeo, red ginseng seumnida." So seumnida is a verb suffix used in Korean to denote formality, which might be picked up by a merchant visiting Goryeo, a historical state of Korea. "My given name is Chiao. Chiai? Chiai. C-A-I. Kai? Maybe Kai? And my courtesy name is Jia Wang." The Kai in Shao Kai means wealth, and Shao Kai altogether sounds similar to inviting wealth. Jia Wang means a prosperous household. "What auspicious names Master Shao has," Hong Shen said in praise. Then he once again began to extol the virtues of his house to me. According to him, the recently deceased old Squire Hong had built it as a study. The old squire had been a Taoist practitioner and had come to stay here when he was at leisure to read and find solitude. Hong Xin also said that there was an ingenious concept in the layout of this house. Entering by the main gate on the right-hand side, the area starting behind the screen wall and extending to the moon gate, with the ivory-covered trellis, was called the spring courtyard. In the main courtyard by the house was a small fish pond with 2 water lilies floating in it, a passable scene of summer. It's a small left-hand courtyard that contained the kitchen, woodshed, latrine, and well, because of its connection to eating and drinking and cereal grains, was called the autumn courtyard. Finally, a spot behind the house was painted with 2 delicate winter-sweet plants. Hong Xin said that when they bloomed, the elegant and lovely scene was resplendent with the beauty of winter. So this little house had spring, summer, autumn, and winter tucked away in it. Hong Xin said, "Therefore, my late father called it 4 Seasons House." That's kind of cool. After 2 or 3 years of wandering, I finally had a nest. I bought the house and moved in. My first night there, I slept in great contentment. Bai Rujin said to me, "There's another advantage to living upstairs. Maybe you'll learn what it is before long, young fellow." I did not understand at the time, but soon after I did learn what the advantage was. It was toward the end of the 6th month that I purchased the house. Not long after I moved in, the 7th month began. One day the sky darkened and the sun never came out again. Pouring rain came drumming down. It fell for days. One morning I got up and went to the window and was astonished to find an ocean downstairs. I stood at the window, watching as the water rose, and rose again. I didn't go downstairs all day. The next morning, the water had submerged the courtyard wall. Bai Rujin came with 2 boatmen paddling a little boat. They floated into the courtyard and picked me up. I crouched on the bow, watching boats and rafts going up and down the streets of Chengshou. The whole city was underwater, but no one seemed to care. On 2nd floors above the street, shops were open as usual. Hawkers, who normally set up stands by the street to sell vegetables and sun-dry goods, were selling from boats instead. Even the provincial government's bailiffs swayed in little crafts as they patrolled the streets. Bai Rujin had the boat rowed up to the 2nd floor of a restaurant from which a ladder hung. The boat came up to the ladder and stopped. I climbed after Bai Rujin to the 2nd floor corridor. Fortunately, my legs were nimble and I could climb with ease. As soon as I set foot in the corridor, a waiter holding a towel bent down to dry and straighten my hands, then took me into the hall. The menu was brought, and I picked up a cup of tea and drank. From the corner of my eye, I saw a head emerge from a window in the restaurant across the street, then holler, "Scallions! Give me a bunch!" Immediately, a little dinghy, heaped full of vegetables, floated over. I couldn't help sighing in admiration. Your customs here are truly extraordinary. Bai Rujin was slipping through the menu. He fingered the short mustache on his upper lip. We're used to it. Chengshou wasn't far from the Long River, and it was bound by 2 other rivers. Floods were very common. When each of us had ordered 2 dishes and we were waiting for our food, Bai Rujin looked out the window at the constant stream of boats and rafts and said chattingly to me, "There's flooding around here every year. In order to protect some of the larger cities along the river, this place is often used as a spillway. Everyone's used to it. The water will come down in 10 days or so." Bai Rujin picked up a couple of 5-spice beans and munched on them, then said, "But you know, the water never got so high in the past. At most, it'd be waist deep. It was 3 years ago that the water started rising especially high." He leaned forward and lowered his voice. "Everyone says it's that wretched Prince Huai's soul haunting us." Why do I feel like there's been a switcheroo? I stared at him, then said, "Surely not. What connection does Prince Huai have to this place?" Bai Rujin stretched his neck out further, and his voice became even quieter. "Well, you wouldn't know about it, young fellow. Chengshou's name contains the character Cheng, same as in Prince Huai's courtesy name, and we have the Jun River to the south. I think Prince Huai's courtesy name was Chengjun." I laughed dryly. "Well." Stroking his short mustache, Bai Rujin said quietly, "Sometimes you have no choice but to believe in superstitious things like that. That miserable Prince Huai was lame, you know. And 3 years ago, not long after he died, the waters rose especially high here, and outside the city, a Shui Bo temple dedicated to the river god was struck by lightning. Hence the bow in the name sounds like lame. Afterward, no one could repair that temple until the emperor in the capital decreed that a big mausoleum was to be built for Prince Huai and a ritual was performed. Over here, we changed the Shui Bo temple to Shui Shen temple and rebuilt it. Shui Bo and Shui Shen are both common and interchangeable terms for the god of local waterways." "It sounds fantastical when you put it that way," I said. "My money is on this guy actually being Chengjun." Just then our food was brought, and Bairu Jin settled down for a bit. I picked up some shredded meat, and Bairu Jin poured a cup of wine. Outside the window, another crop of the preferential bailiffs floated by, standing in boats. Looking at the boats full of bailiffs, Bairu Jin said, "Recently, with the floods on the way, our local prefect sent to the court asking for provisions, and I've heard the court has sent an excellent commissioner to manage the flooding. He might be here soon. The local government has been keeping a pretty close eye on things for the past few days." Which one do we think it's going to be? I haven't kept up with court news over the past few years, and I didn't know how many of the mainstays there had changed. I couldn't resist asking, which of the court's officials merits such a big display? Oh, shit. Bairu Jin lifted his wine cup and said quietly, "I hear it's Vice Minister of Works, Yun Yu. Impressive enough? Since Imperial Chancellor Liu acknowledged his errors and resigned his post, who is there among the young officials at court to equal him, apart from Shang Ping? Unfortunately, he is Yun Tang's son, and while Imperial Chancellor Liu shouldered nearly all the blame for the wrongful accusation against Prince Huai, I heard that he also had a part in it. If not for that, when Chancellor Liu resigned, the position of Imperial Chancellor might never have gone to Lord Shang." Holding up my wine cup, I chuckled a bit. Bairu Jin shook his head. "Maybe when that commissioner gets here, the waters will only rise higher." All right. So just from this, we can determine that I think it was Zhang, was the uncle that got poisoned and was in a coma, I think. And that was the only one that Huai told about kind of what he was doing. So I think that's where it came up, and maybe the drug was something that was like a death-like state, like so many of these novels have. And he faked his death and is now living, apparently, in a small provincial town. And yeah. All right. We'll see. Here comes Mr. the Drama and one of the past mistakes. Yun Yu was coming to manage the flooding and ought to be here in a few days. I would probably be staying in Changshu until the start of the 8th month. Maybe I'd be able to catch a glimpse of him, or maybe I wouldn't. It was all the same whether I did or did not. The decades of a human lifetime were quite long. Yun Yu, Liu Tongyi, even Chizzy. There was no saying when I might run into my former acquaintances. Prince Huai was a handful of ashes now, interned in a mausoleum in the capital, and many people had watched him burn. Likely no one suspected that it had been a fraud. Now only the merchant Xiao Chia, Haimo Mars rover, Xiao Kai remained. Even if they saw me, what could happen? So you came at a great time. So we now have confirmation that Prince Huai has faked his death, and the capital eventually found out, probably through his uncle waking up, that he was actually innocent. And Prince Liu resigned, and now the town that he has bought a house in and been staying in for like 6 months is going to be visited by Yun Yu. And he's like, what does it matter? That's not my life anymore. So, welcome. I wonder how all those people I had once known were doing now. Were Yun Yu and my nephew? No, not my nephew anymore. His Majesty. Getting along? The Emperor had been very virile over the last few years. I had heard that there were many new little princes. Poor Yun Yu. During the events of 3 years ago, his whole family had become low-status convicts, apart from him. He was actually a very dutiful person and had saved their lives, but Perhaps his family hated his guts, and of all the people in the world, he had fallen for the emperor. So the saying goes that every pot has its lid. Probably no one but Chizzy could have tamed Yun Yu, and no one but Yun Yu could have bound Chizzy. As for Liu Tongyi, when I had heard that he had resigned his position and returned home, I had felt some compunction. Here I had wrecked a pillar of the court. Later I heard rumors that he had retired to live in seclusion in the countryside, and also that he had gone traveling. I suppose he must be more relaxed than at court. He had said once that he had wanted to be an idler. When I thought of that, my remorse lessened. This encounter in Changsha with Yun Yu coming to manage the flooding might well be destiny. After this, perhaps I would run into him a few more times by coincidence, and perhaps I would never have another chance to see him. After we ate at the restaurant, Bai Rujin took me to visit his house and talk over some shop business. Bai Rujin's family ranked among the richest in Changsha City, with an impressive mansion. Now, half submerged, the length of its enclosing wall still protruded from the water. A portion of the wall beside the main gate could be opened to give access to boats. Apparently, all the wealthy households in Changsha had boat gates like this. The vessel entered the courtyard and floated right up to the main hall. Their windows must be sealed perfectly, because I can't even imagine that kind of flooding. Bai Rujin had 4 wives, 3 sons, and 2 daughters. His eldest son was 14 or 15 already and learning his father's business. Bai Rujin called him over to pay respects to me. He called me Uncle Xiao. 3 of the other children were slightly younger, between the ages of 7 and 10. They traipsed around the second-floor veranda, folding paper boats to toss into the water. Then there was the youngest, a precious daughter, only around a year old and the child of Bai Rujin's 3rd wife. This 3rd madam was a shrewd, remarkable woman who took care of half the management of Bai Rujin's shops. The women of merchant families weren't in the habit of avoiding guests to begin with, and this 3rd madam often accompanied Bai Rujin to discuss business. When it came to doing accounts, she was even more skilled than her husband. We love a lady boss. You go, girl. The 3rd madam sat in the hall with us this time, too. Bai Rujin explained to me his plans and expenses for the shop, as well as future projects, and the 3rd madam sat next to him with the ledger open, clicking away on an abacus. Each and every entry was clear and precise. Behind her stood a nursemaid holding the baby girl, as well as some other maids. After 1 mark or so, when she had all the accounts straightened out, she passed the ledger and the abacus to the maid, and took the child from the nursemaid's arms. Bai Xiang and his wife truly are a match made in heaven, I couldn't help saying with admiration. The picture of domestic harmony. Bai Rujin said with a smile, "Just find yourself one to marry, young fellow. My humble wife was so foolish she couldn't do anything when she first married me. But after only half a year of study, she was able to help out." I think she was probably smarter than that, and she's just giving you more credit because she knows. She knows. The 3rd madam joined in. "That's right. Why don't you get married, Master Xiao?" "Few men in the world can have Bai Xiang's luck," I said. "To marry so many gentle and virtuous women, lovely as flowers and beautiful as jade, and above all, to find someone as remarkable as you, 3rd madam, with such looks and skill. I would like to marry, but I haven't met the right person, so I must carry on as a bachelor." The 3rd madam pressed her lips together and smiled. "That's because Master Xiao's standards are too high. You've been all over the world, and still no one has caught your eye." Bai Rujin shook his head. "You, Niang, you're wrong. As I see it, Master Xiao's problem is that he has his heart set on someone, and he can't forget her. That's why he's remained unmarried so long. Isn't that so, young fellow?" When did you learn of Tell Fortunes by Xiang? I joked, going along with it. Just tell me whether there's someone on your mind, said Bai Rujin. Be honest. I thought about it, then nodded. Honestly, yes. Bai Rujin clapped his hands and turned to the third madam. You see? Then he said to me, anyone who can occupy your thoughts to the point of preventing you from marrying must be a peerless beauty, no? Yes, something like that, I said. Bairujin fingered his mustache. And she must be talented as well as beautiful, and gentle as water. The first is true. The second, I wouldn't say so. She can be quite fierce. Really? They're not calling them beautiful? Oh, must be talented as well as beautiful, so he's saying yes to that one. The gentle as water, he's disputing. Okay. Took a second. Bairujin slapped his leg with a loud laugh. So you like to be bossed around. Does this young lady belong to a brothel, or is she a wealthy family's young mistress? She's from a family of government officials, I said. Whoa, that's incredible, said Bairujin. An official's daughter. Why didn't it work out between you two? Yeah, I agree with you, Peacock Pages. Which one do we think he's talking about? I think he's probably still on our Liu Tongyi, in all honesty. That's kind of like his white moonlight and his original crush. I think Yoon Yu kind of seemed like his more realistic possibility in his mind. And also, I think he's realized that it wasn't what he thought it was. He basically got played. And that Chizzy and Yoon Yu kind of had that relationship. And so I think he let that one go. But I seriously think it's probably Liu Tongyi. But that's just my thought. I'm curious to see what you all think as well. Whoa, that's incredible, said Bai Rujin. An official's daughter. Why didn't it work out between you? Well, she was in love with someone else, and it was mutual, I said. Now they're together. All right, call me wrong. That sounds like you and you. Imagining many sighs on my behalf, Bai Rujin comforted me. Young fellow, since it wasn't meant to be, you ought to know when to let go. There are plenty of good women out there. I've let it go already, I said. I'm just used to being on my own. I've been so busy that I've forgotten about it. I've been thinking lately of finding someone. If you know of anyone good, Bai Xiang and Third Madam, please introduce me. Bai Rujin immediately smacked himself on the chest and promised to help. The little girl was playing with a necklet in the Third Madam's arms. I dangled a bunch of grapes in front of her. She reached out her little hands for them and gurgled, Dada, want! Bai Rujin remarked rather despondently that the child had just learned to talk and had a bad habit. She called all women mama and all men dada. I gave her the grapes, and she immediately extended her arms to be picked up. I took her from her mother and held her, and she tugged on my collar enthusiastically, crying, Dada! It was adorable. Okay, Chi-Chi Kiki. I think he had a celebrity crush on Liu Tongyi and a real one on Yunyu. I could see it. I could see it. At this point, I'm honestly not sure. Because he kind of seems slightly flighty with a romantic heart. I don't think he even knows. I kind of agree. Like, I think he just wanted to be with somebody. And that was one of his first honest connections with a person that wasn't related to him by family in the garden. And it just kind of stuck out to that. Chichikiki, I feel like he might end up with Liu Tongyi. Well, Liu Tongyi seemed to have actual regret for what happened. Yunyu didn't, like, as I said at the beginning, he seemed kind of slimy. He had a scheme there going. And honestly, he seemed to have more connection with Chizzy. And I feel the same on both points. Same to both points. Like, I honestly think that Yunyu, it kind of was familiarity and connection. Like, they were doing something together, and he was like, listen, I'm trying to help you, trying to get you out. It didn't hurt that both of the men were very pretty. Like, we gotta put in pretty privilege right here, because, like, come on. But yeah, like, I really don't know with him with relationships, because I think at this point in the story, he's kind of like, that is so totally a different part of my life right now. It's so disconnected from me. Like, these people, like, what does it matter? Like, these people are people I'm probably never going to talk to. And if I do, like, it's not my life anymore. So part of me feels like he's actually pretty settled in just being a wanderer. Like, he never really had aspirations for greatness. He just kind of wanted to be loyal to, like, his nephew. Valid point. Pretty privilege is powerful in the genre. Right? Like, he kind of seemed to just be going along with the flow for a lot of things. And kind of these were the people that were around him and that he kept running into. One was in his circle, and another one was kind of like you said, like an unattainable crush. And then the crush actually came in his sphere because, well, he thought it was coincidence, but now we find out, oh, hey, you were kind of setting me up for a sting. Ouch, that kind of hurts. But I felt a little more honest connection between Liu Tongyi. Well, Yunyu seemed a bit more forced. If in my opinion. But I'm intrigued to see where they go from this. But yeah, I think at this point he's pretty content with how his life is. Like, he's just like, this is how it is. Like, there's literally ashes in a tomb that people think is me. Like, that's not my life anymore. So I'm just gonna kind of move on. Like, I wasn't even thinking about it. But yeah, you know what? It'd be nice to kind of have someone in my life to have a connection with. And now, of course, Yunyu's coming back into the picture, and probably the Yu Tongyi. But I'd be very surprised. It'd be really interesting in one of these books if we had just a complete different character come up, and that's the love interest. Because almost always it's like one of the characters that's introduced at the very beginning. But what if it just is a completely random person? What a plot twist that would be. Like, I kind of want that to happen. I don't think it will, the way this book is going. But I'd kind of like to read a book like that where it's like, nope, none of the characters you thought were the main character are actually the main character. Haha, tricked you. Yeah, I agree. It would be very interesting. Chichi Kiki. And the crush is over. It's been 3 years. Right? All right. Okay. Mini rant over. Not even rant. Discussion. I enjoyed the discussion, but we should probably go. I'll just restart this page. I've let it go already, I said. I'm just used to being on my own. There it is. I've been so busy that I've forgotten all about it. I've been thinking lately of finding someone. If you know of anyone good, Bai Xiang and Third Madam, please introduce me. Yeah, so like right there. Like, been getting my life back together. Like, who has time for relationship? That's kind of how I feel. Who has time for relationships these days? Economy? Are you kidding me? Oy. Bai Rujin immediately smacked himself on the chest and promised to help. Oh yeah, no, we just had the Dada thing conversation, right? Bai Rujin urged me to stay at his house, and I firmly refused. He then loaned me two of his servants, a little boat, an empty wooden water barrel, and a barrel of clean water. The two servants came with the boat in the mornings to take me for outings. I ate in town or brought food home with me. In the evenings, the two servants returned to the Bai household. That was kind of him. There was water everywhere, but potable water was hard to come by. Everywhere, the water was dirty. Everyone in the city had to paddle their boats and bring barrels to a spring in a mountain outside the city to pick up water to drink. Each family had two barrels prepared, one for holding potable water and another to catch rainwater, which could be used for washing when it cleared. Bai Rujin said that once the water subsided, I would have to stop up the well in the courtyard and dig a new one. Oh, that would get tiring to do that every year. The water in the original well had been polluted by the floodwaters, and using it was likely to make me sick. I mean, I get it, but every year? That's gotta be crazy expensive. The third madam also arranged to send me a case of charcoal bricks, a copper stove, and two kettles. They are really helping him out. I wonder if he saved them on the road or something, because this seems like a lot to do for a stranger. I get that you're trying to make a deal, but it just seems interesting to me. They're being very kind, which is great. There's generous people out there, but it seems like a lot to do for a stranger. The charcoal bricks were kept in an iron box to keep them from catching fire. Only when I needed to use them would I put them in the copper stove to burn. One kettle was for heating water to make tea, and one was for heating water for household use. I had always liked tea. The barrel of water from the Bai house was used up in 2 days. Bringing the barrel, I took a boat to the mountain to fetch water. Row after row of boats were stopped by the mountain. The Bai family servants showed me the way. A well-made mountain road led all the way to the spring. The whole road was paved. It had been the city's wealthy families who had pooled money to pay for the work. There were also people with handcarts soliciting business on the road. I spent 20 coins to hire a cart. A carter was assigned to push my barrel up the mountain with his cart, fill it up with water, then bring it back down and help me load it into the boat. The local government had posted a number of bailiffs at the spring. Later on, you would first give the bailiffs your name and take a token, then get your water when the bailiffs called your token number. A tea stall was set up in an empty space where you could have a drink while you waited. I feel like that's kind of like people who work as snowplows for winter, either additional money wise or just as their main job. I feel like that's kind of like what these people running up the mountain for water during the floods, that's kind of like that, their side hustle. I had just sat down at the stall when a man approached me and quietly said, "Sir, I can tell from your face and clothing that you're an important man. Your time is very valuable. I have a token here that I got up first thing in the morning to get. There are only 2 or 3 people ahead of it waiting to get water. For a 10-coin tip, I'll switch with you. Otherwise, you'll be waiting at least another shichen." 10 coins wasn't much, but I didn't have anything to do today. It wouldn't hurt to wait a while, so I refused. When the man had walked away, the carter said to me, "Lucky you didn't buy it, sir. That's one of the city's ruffians. He's ganged up with the others, and they come every morning to line up and get tokens, then make money swapping them with people who come later, then swap the tokens they got in exchange with people who come even later. They make more money that way in a day than we do doing the hard work of pushing carts. The bailiffs already know some of them. There's a high-ranking court official on his way to manage the flooding, so the local prefect wants to improve order. If you'd swapped with him, the bailiffs might have taken your token and not let you get water at all. So that was it. It seemed that government merchants weren't the only ones who knew how to take advantage of a disaster to make money. Oof. Harsh. In another half a shichen or so, I got my water and went down the mountain, then took the boat to the city. On the way, I picked up a hunk of meat and 2 pounds of mushrooms from the boats along the way. All the seasonings in my kitchen had been soaked by the floodwaters, so I bought more salt, sugar, peppercorns, anise, and cumin. When I'd gone to the desert in the north to collect furs, I had brought a grilling rack for meat. It happened to be stored in the second floor and hadn't been submerged. When I got home today, I planned to dangle a fishing rod from the veranda, sit by the copper stove grill, grill the meat, and drink wine. I thought it would be most pleasant. The old lady selling mushrooms gave me a rattan basket, just big enough to hold the meat, mushrooms, and seasoning. I was ready to stop by a wine shop to get a small jar of good wine. The boat was on its way when I heard someone call, "Master Shao?" So I turned my head and saw the Bai family's old steward aboard a boat next to me with the third madam. She must have been on her way back from checking the accounts at the shop. I returned the greeting. A nursemaid was standing next to her holding the little girl. The little girl was bawling, and her voice was quite resonant. I asked what was the matter. The third madam said with a pained smile, "This morning she insisted on coming with me, and now she's crying to go back home. Steward Shang has to go to the shop up ahead to do some things, and she won't settle down no matter what we do." "Perfect," I said. "I'm on my way home. You and your darling daughter can go home in this boat, and it'll take me back." "How could I impose like that?" said the third madam. Smiling, I said, "It's my pleasure, third madam. This boat belongs to you anyways. I won't like using it if you act like this." "If you put it that way, we certainly can't refuse," she said sweetly. Then she had her boat approach mine. I took the child, and the nursemaid came aboard my boat, supporting the third madam. Once the child was in my arms, she rubbed her tears and snot onto my shoulder and called me Dada, then unexpectedly sniffled into silence. The nursemaid tried to take her back, but she twisted away reluctantly. "Let me hold her for now," I said. "You two have really hit it off, Master Shao," said the nursemaid with a smile. "Why not make her my goddaughter, then?" I joked. Bai Rujin's little daughter sprawled on my shoulder. The nursemaid picked up the rattan basket I had just put down at my feet, and the little girl took a fancy to the mushrooms in the basket. She reached out and babbled, "Dada, that one! Dada, that one!" The third madam's thin brows drew together, and she lightly smacked the little girl's hand, scolding her for being naughty. The little girl's mouth puckered up. I could tell that she was about to start bawling again, and it would be my ears and my robe that paid the price. I quickly said, "Little kids are cuter when they're a bit naughty." I freed up a hand to pluck a mushroom from the basket, wiped it on my robe, and gave it to her. The little girl quickly snatched it up and gurgled a laugh, displaying her still growing baby teeth. She got ready to put the mushroom in her mouth. She sounds adorable. Like, she sounds so cute. And, like, I would also kind of be like, she can have a mushroom. Like, as long as it's not going to hurt her. Like, it's pretty soft. He wiped it. I mean, it's not the worst thing. Kids eat so much dirt and other things. I don't think a mushroom's going to hurt her. I stopped her quickly. The nursemaid said with a smile, "Master Shao really has a soft spot for children." But the third madam said to me in a low voice, Master Shao, did the boat that went by just now look like an official boat to you? The man in the boat looks to me like someone important. Oh? My attention had been focused slowly on Bai Rujin's little daughter just now. I hadn't noticed any boat. When the third madam said this, I looked in the direction she indicated. The instant I looked in that direction, I met two gazes. The boat had an awning, a lacquer black one. Its hull was brand new. 4 men rowed in it. They were dressed in ordinary clothes but had perfect posture. These were not ordinary boatmen. 2 people stood at the fore, one wearing a light-colored robe. He was upright and cold, his appearance absolutely meticulous. From his figure and manner, you might almost have taken him for Xiaoping, or Shangping. But I kept watching him, even after he had turned away to look elsewhere. Even without seeing his face, even though he had changed so much, I knew him at first glance. Bai Rujin's little daughter squirmed, tugging on my robe. Dada! Dada! I looked away and said to the third madam, Could that be the commissioner? He was Yun Yu. I went with the boat as it took the third madam and her daughter back to the Bai residence. Bai Rujin wasn't there. The third madam politely asked me to stay, and I politely declined. Turning back from the Bai residence, I bought a small jar of wine on the way, returned to the house, set up the grilling rack, and then drank wine and ate meat. When I had washed the meat and sliced it, there was another spell of heavy rain, which invoked a particular sensation as it fell on the standing water. I lit the coal fire, laid out some cuts on the rack, and then poured myself wine. Honestly, that sounds like an amazing evening. Just kind of chilling, grilling meat, and drinking wine while listening and watching the rain. That sounds amazing. Chengshou's local wines were all yellow wine, and the wine shops also stock things like Capital Vintage, Bamboo Leaf Green, Apricot Blossom wine, none with especially authentic flavors. Sign me up, yeah. Right with you, Peacock Pages. Honestly, out of those, I'd probably take the Apricot Blossom wine. Although I'd be intrigued what Bamboo Leaf Green tastes like. The wine I had bought was Chengshou's local Bamboo Leaf Green, a clear wine with a faint mellow sweetness. Again, sounds amazing. Yellow wine, unfortunately, tends to be warming, and though with the flooding and the rains it was quite cool now, we were nonetheless in the hottest days of summer. I was grilling a leg of mutton. If on top of that I downed half a gin of yellow wine, would be throwing oil on the fire, and I was sure to end up with blisters around my mouth. He's funny. I think that's why I'm okay with this first person stuff. Like, he's pretty funny. By the Mid-Autumn Festival, however, the weather could be just right for drinking yellow wine and eating crabs. I would probably be out east by the sea by the 15th day of the 8th month, where there would be fresh sea crabs to eat. Could bring a couple of jars of quality yellow wine with me when I went. With dark clouds weighing heavily, the sky dim, rain sheeting down like a curtain beyond the eaves, and a cold wind carrying an occasional drop or two inside, there was a strange comfort in this moment. Once I had looked down on the literati, thinking they were a pretentious bunch who might sit in a dingy house composing poetry about a field of freshly fertilized radishes. Now I was eating grilled mutton, looking out on rain and water as far as the eye could see, and I felt myself to be quite refined, not all that different from them. I had watered down the Chengshou bamboo leaf green with some of the spring water I had picked up today. It had a particular savor. It would have been even better if I had some watermelon thinly sliced and chilled, or chilled dark plum juice to break up the oiliness of the food. Seeing you, hang on. This is probably starting a new section, so I'm going to take a take a sip. Seeing Yun Yu on the boat earlier had been within my expectations. I didn't think anything of it. Only, I hadn't thought he would have changed so much in 3 years. Likely, this had to do with the Emperor's virility, which had produced several princes. He and Chizzy were destined not to have easy lives. But easy or not, it had nothing to do with me. Each man walks the path he chooses. Perhaps what looks hard in the eyes of outsiders is happiness to the people who experience it. See, right there. He's kind of past it. I wondered whether Yun Yu had recognized me. The crippled Prince Huai, Chengjun, no longer existed. There was only the merchant Shao Kai, who would neither raise a rebellion nor covet the throne. Even if he had seen me, he had nothing to worry about on Chizzy's behalf. Or perhaps not. Maybe he would think that I had fled out into the world with my evil designs intact and was still using my secret power to reestablish myself. Then he would once again come to me with a crowd of officers with manacles and chains. Faking my death to escape unquestionably made me a condemned prisoner staging a prison break, a crime of treason against the Emperor. If it could be substantiated and I was dragged back to the capital, this could only end in a beheading. On the surface now, Prince Huai had committed suicide. After Prince Shang had woken up, the Emperor had awarded me a big mausoleum on top of a stainless reputation. But who knew what these people were really thinking? A dead man gave people a sense of security. All kinds of lip service might be paid to him. But if that dead man came back alive, now, that was awkward. I was capable of faking my death. That seemed to bear out the existence of my secret power. Perhaps he would order me to be put away in secret. Only when the dead man was truly dead would they feel secure at last. With the flooding, it was hard to run. It would be hard to run. I would stay quiet and observe. Yun Yu worked now for the Ministry of Works, not the Ministry of Justice. He had only come to manage the flooding. That was just fine. If he really had seen me and become suspicious, he would have to observe in secret for a few days. On top of that, he would be busy with his work, and letters would be difficult to send. This left me ample room to maneuver. When I left Changsha, I would go to the southeast to pick up goods and go to sea, to some place like Java, to lie low for a couple of years. My mother once said to me, "If there is any suspicion that you might make an attempt on the throne, you will come to no good. Loyal or treacherous, no one could endure you." I didn't completely believe her. It was only later that I discovered that my father and I had both been less clear-sighted than my mother, a woman. I keep cheering for you, then you make little digs like that, and I'm kind of like, really? Really? Did you have to add that little bit right there? You were doing so well, and then you just kind of like, When my attempt to be a spy turned into a joke, ultimately it was an escape plan she had arranged for me that saved my life. My escape had been a little unfair on Liu Tongyi. I had observed and judged the situation thus. Besides Chizzy, the most astute and capable official involved in this matter could be none other than Liu Tongyi, and he was the leader. I could only succeed by hoodwinking Imperial Chancellor Liu. So I had played out a melodrama in front of Liu Tongyi. It had been quite realistic. I did manage to fool him. Anyone, however astute and capable he might be, would be thrown off balance by watching someone spit up blood and perish before his very eyes. Huai Manor had no secret power, but it did have two adept individuals. They were Shang Xiao and Chief Steward Qiao. Shang Xiao's original name was Xiao Feng, and Chief Steward Qiao was Yu Su. Once, the two of them had been among the world's most notorious bandits. What? Xiao Feng was an expert in disguise, and Yu Su in quick getaways. What? Where did that come from? Like, that is hilarious. During a drought in Xiaoshou, Shang Feng impersonated an imperial commissioner and used a falsified imperial edict to have grain distributed. There was plague in Shucheng, and the government soldiers had sealed the city, leaving the people in it to die. Yuesu had been a bandit outside the city then. He went to the imperial treasure house in the capital, cut the strings of beads off the emperor's crown, and sold them to buy medicine to provide disaster relief. While in the imperial treasure house, he also plastered notes everywhere proclaiming Shu Cheng's Yu Su rights wrongs on behalf of the heaven. The two of them each had a large bounty placed on his head by the government. One after another, they fled to the border, where they became soldiers under my father's banner. My father feigned ignorance. So we got two Robin Hoods that are living as the butler and his assistant in the house. That's amazing. I was not expecting that lore drop to happen, but I'm not upset about it. Later, barbarians invaded. Xiao Feng impersonated an enemy deputy general, infiltrated their camp, and cut off their general's head. Yu Su reconnoitered the terrain and led over 100 soldiers by a path that let them launch a successful sneak attack on the enemy barracks. The barbarians were defeated. Unfortunately, the two men's backgrounds were exposed in the course of performing these labors. My father made a plan. He brought to Xiao Feng two corpses so he could alter their appearances. Then he said the two men were dead, and the deception was complete. From there on, the two of them changed their names and became stewards at Huai Manor. There they remained for decades, and even I hadn't known. The scholar of the red leaves of the western hills, who wrote The Divine White Jade Sword, was then an obscure scribe. He wrote a book called Chivalrous Bandits in Troubled Times, based on the two of them. That was how he made his name, which later led to the Divine White Jade Sword, and so forth. It's all connected. Only in the book, to set off the depiction of chivalry, the characters were unavoidably touched up, turning the near illiterate simple and single Xiao Feng and Yu Su into romantic and dashing figures. They were young, handsome, and surrounded by a melodious crowd of countless infatuated young mistresses and beautiful heroines. When the two chivalrous bandits were killed, an infatuated imperial chancellor's daughter and princess even perished to follow them. I hadn't known about Chief Steward Shang and Chief Steward Chao's identities when I was young. I got a copy of Chivalrous Bandits in Troubled Times from the bookbindery and became mesmerized and misty-eyed. In one part, Yu Su meets the princess. I swallowed and read on, completely forgetting myself, and was unfortunately caught by my father. He sat on the veranda, reading with immense interest, laughing nonstop. What a load of bull! My mother shot him a glare. No vulgar language in front of the child. You ought to show the book to old Shang and old Qiao. My father nodded. You're absolutely right. I watched uncomprehendingly as he dog-eared some pages of the book, then bounced off to do it with it under his arm. It was only when my mother was on point of death that she told me about Xiao Feng's and Yu Su's true identities. And she said to me, You have some problems in common with your father, so I made an escape plan for you many years ago. Those two will keep you safe. He's got a really good mom. Like, she's trying her best in this politically unsafe climate. But I never thought I would really have to use her plan. When I put that pill in the secret pocket in the collar of my inner robe, I'd been planning to use it to save Yun Yu if worst came to worst. I never expected to use it myself. The plan wasn't a particularly brilliant one. All it took was going to a coffin house to find an unclaimed corpse of similar build to me. Everything hinged on my performance being up to scratch. After I was put in the Imperial prison, Xiao Feng infiltrated the prison guards and came to see me twice. The first time among the personal guards Chi Tan and Chi Fei brought when they came to visit me, and the second on the morning of the escape, when he was once again dressed as a prison guard and came to clean up my dishes. He informed me that everything had been arranged. During those 2 days, Liu Tongyi, Chu Shun, Chi Tan, Chi Fei, and Yun Yu all came on stage, giving me ample cause. So I performed a melodrama for Liu Tongyi, giving full vent to my emotions. According to the rules, a person like me who commits suicide in prison out of fear of punishment could not be left in the prison. Instead, I would be placed on a mat and carried to a shed or retiring room. Once the corpse was examined, a decision would be made about my burial and funeral. After I was dead, my nephew the Emperor was sure to grant me a coffin instead of good burial garments to show his benevolence. No one would spend a great deal of effort making funeral arrangements for me. I was sure to be buried at once, with a memorial tablet prepared. The ministers and emperor would put their heads together, issue a decent enough official decree about me, and then all would be well. Therefore, the time to act would be after the examination of the corpse, when the corpse was to be washed and dressed. I was worried that I would still be kept under strict guard, which was why I told Liu Tongyi I wanted to be cremated. First, it would make the whole production more genuine, as if I was sincerely disheartened, made my plight more wretched. Second, the body would have to be taken to a remote, open place in the suburbs to be burned. There were sheds and shacks and stacks of firewood out in the country, making it easier to tamper with the process. It would be an additional chance to swap the bodies. Third, this avoided issues in case Liu Tongyi recovered his senses, or Chizzy or Yun Yu or someone became suspicious and had the coffin open to re-examine the body. Or if Prince Xiang woke and for the sake of decency they wanted to move my body and hold another funeral. Becoming a handful of ashes was more foolproof. Perhaps everyone thought that with Prince Huai dead, all was right in the world. Just as I had expected, they were besides themselves with happiness, and in order to make sure their happiness was merited, they all came to observe the washing and dressing of the body. According to what the two chief stewards told me later, the emperor himself came to supervise the proceedings, and Yun Yu and Liu Tongyi were naturally present as well. The Empress Dowager was unable to come in person, so she sent her big brother to represent her. It was a fairly grand spectacle. Even my princess came from her convent, with her growing belly and a handful of nuns, to recite scriptures of reincarnation for me, and hope that I would set aside the sins of this lifetime and be a good person in the next. I heard that, of all the people present, only Chitan cried. Liu Tongyi left midway. Unfortunately, I'd been unconscious at the time and had no chance to experience this grand occasion for myself. Xiao Feng and Yu Su found no opportunity to swap the bodies. Fortunately, I'd had wits enough to think of cremation and avoided the tragedy of my fake death turning into a living burial. That's a little morbid. Oof. It was fortunate, too, that the weather was hot and bodies could not be left lying out for long. The emperor also thought that cremation would be more thorough. After washing and dressing of the body, I was taken to Pufang Temple, the very one originally built for me, where my body rested for one night. Of course, nobody was present to keep vigil or burn funeral money for me. Many guards were stationed to keep watch over the corpse, but because I was dead and had preferred men in life, they gave me a wide berth and didn't look too closely. They gave Xiao Feng and Yu Su an opportunity to exchange me for the disguised corpse. The body was burned the next day in an empty space in the rear courtyard of Pufang Temple. Then the ashes were placed in an urn, which was consigned to a coffin, which was buried beneath Pufang Temple. I opened my eyes in a carriage leaving the capital. I very much felt as though I had arrived in the next life. My own hideouts in the valley in Shinan and in Shusho had been cleared out by Yun Yu, so I couldn't go anywhere near them. Chief Steward Chiao, Yu Su, that is, told me that the late Princess Huai, my mother, had arranged for my escape many years ago. I had a registered residence in a hometown. Because my parents were both in business, I had left home very young, but I still had a house in my hometown. My old neighbor still remembered that my nickname was Jia Wang, and that I had climbed the scholar tree of the neighbors to the east and pilfered pomegranates from the neighbors to the west. I parted ways with Yu Su and went with Xiao Feng to see the latter teacher, who performed acupuncture on my leg and straightened out the sinews, which had been bunched for over a decade. Straightening them out was no easy matter. It took 3 months of recovery before my limp went away. Dude, good on him. I'm glad that he got his leg fixed. I bade farewell to Xiao Feng and his teacher, then went home to Jinshu town in Shuangqiao County in Shengyang Prefecture, where I stayed for a few days, saw the old neighbors, cleaned up the old house that had stood empty for over a decade, paid my respects at the ancestral hall and tombs of my ancestors, then went on to travel all over doing business. When I set out on the road, I heard that Prince Xiang had woken up and Prince Huai had transformed from a rebel prince to a wretched, wrongfully dead loyal subject. For a time, this topic was regularly bandied about in public places. I listened as though they were talking of someone else and sometimes contributed some opinions of my own. Prince Huai was truly luckless. As expected, the urn was dug up from its grave behind Pufang Temple. The erection of a large mausoleum was followed by a lavish funeral. The emperor very properly assumed personal responsibility, and Liu Tongyi resigned his position. It seemed that there was also plans to convert Huai Manor into a memorial temple or something of the sort. At any rate, it was a very happy ending all around. Beyond the eaves, the rain gradually weakened. As I recalled the events of 3 years ago and of the intervening 3 years, I felt like a man remembering his past life. Sadly, the scholar of the red leaves of the western hills had laid aside his brush long ago. With a bit of modification, he could have turned all these events into a book. Well, if he were still alive, he probably wouldn't have chosen this story, actually. Everyone loves to read legends of heroes. Who wants to read an account of a shiftless prince turned merchant? I mean, we are. So I guess some people. Author's calling us out a little bit right there. I sprinkled some cumin on a slice of meat and flipped it, then caught a glimpse of a boat in the distance approaching my home. I narrowed my eyes and looked closely. It appeared to be the Bai residence's boat. When it reached the railing, sure enough, it was Bai Rujin, who darted from the cabin, jumped onto the veranda, then strode urgently inside. "Young fellow, we have a problem." I stood in surprise. Bai Rujin stomped over, pulled up a chair, and sat. Rubbing his hands together, he said, "There's an issue with that batch of silk you ordered." "What is it?" I asked. "I had planned to stay in Chengshou until the beginning of the 8th month precisely because of this batch of silk. Chengshou had a kind of silkworm that produced silk in the 7th and 8th months. Instead of mulberry leaves, it exclusively fed on what was commonly known as the butter tree. A great deal of silk was produced in both spring and autumn, but little in the summer. One could make a tidy profit by selling it to the weaving mills in Shuzhou and Hangzhou. The silk made by this kind of silkworm was yellowish, insufficiently white, and came cheap, but once it was woven and dyed, it made quite a close weave, and none of its flaws could be seen. I'd come to Chengshou originally to deliver a batch of medicines Bai Rujin had ordered, and on the way I had stopped to eat and inadvertently overheard someone mention the state of silkworm eggs this summer. That was how I learned of these silkworms. The locals all thought their silk was bad and had never sold it elsewhere, so I became interested in getting some and trying. In order to get Bai Rujin to act as a go-between to purchase the silk, I invested some money in his medicine shop. Then I spoke to some of the silk mills in Suzhou and Hangzhou, prosperous cities in Jiangnan with thriving silk trades, and they were also quite interested. Bai Rujin said, "Some traveling traders had come from the Suzhou Hangzhou area also to purchase silk. They're offering twice the price you agreed on, young fellow. I hear they're from one of the firms you were planning to resell the silk to, called Ruihe. Ruihe had been the largest cloth merchant firm in Jiangnan these past couple years. They controlled several stores and around a dozen weaving mills and embroidery workshops. Most of my talks about reselling the silk in Jiangnan had been with 2 or 3 of Ruihe's weaving mills because I had thought they were relatively trustworthy businessmen. But instead, they had come to Chengshou during a flood to undercut me. Paying twice the price I had offered for the silk would mean taking a loss. It was a little strange for them to come all the way during a flood in order to lose money and undercut me by stealing my deal. I also thought it was strange, said Bai Rujin. They could get the best silk in Jiangnan for that price. Why come to Chengshou during a flood to steal someone else's business? The concern is, now that they've artificially driven up the price. Once they force you out, they'll lower the prices again. But now the price is so high, I'm afraid some of the families that ordered it here will go back on their word. At any rate, the whole thing seemed peculiar. Pyrogin continued. We're all in the same business. Openly driving you out like this is against the rules. I heard first thing this morning and went over right away to talk to them. I saw 2 of the Ruihe people. They said they had no intention of undercutting us. They actually want a long-term partnership. One of their higher-ups has come, maybe even the general manager. He invited us to come over and chat with them this afternoon so they can explain their reasoning to us. Their manager is going to be leaving tomorrow. Do you want to come? I thought about it. Why not? I put out the coal fire, changed my clothes, and took Bai Rujin's boat to see the people from Ruihe. Bai Rujin said that Ruihe's people had arranged a banquet on Jiqing Lane, which was the most presentable place in Changshou, with good wine, good tea, good music, and beautiful women. It was a good place to talk business, and the rain had petered out. Yeah, this whole thing feels suspicious. Definitely feels suspicious. When the boat reached Jiqing Lane, a waiter let us inside via the second-floor corridor. We came to a private room, and the waiter opened the door. The man standing at the window turned. I paused at the door. He paused at the window. Bai Rujin saluted and said, Master Mei, we saw each other this morning. This is Master Shao, whom I told you about. I gave him a palm to fist salute. I am Shao Kai. Liu Tongyi's clear eyes looked directly into mine. He lifted his sleeves and smiled. I am Mei Yang. The yang in this name is the character that means mediocre, and the whole name Mei Yang sounds similar to the word useless. Well, Mars Rover, you are right to be suspicious. I think someone figured some shit out. The dining table in the private room wasn't very large. Apart from Liu Tongyi, Bai Rujin, and myself, the only other person at the banquet was one of Ryuhi's accountants. Once we were seated, Bai Rujin began. Master Mei, I am most indebted to you for your generosity in inviting Master Shao and myself to eat with you. As for the matter of the silk, I am only a middleman. Master Mei should really be talking to Master Shao. You're both in business. Friendship begets fortunes, you know. As Bai Rujin spoke, I looked at Liu Tongyi. The Chancellor Liu of 3 years ago had been constantly busy with government affairs and unavoidably severe in aspect as a result. Now, without the constraint of the office of Imperial Chancellor, Mei Yang's appearance and expression were both considerably more relaxed. Liu Tongyi was also openly scrutinizing me. Mei Yang and Shao Kai were meeting for the first time. It was only natural that they would want to size each other up. When Bai Rujin had finished, Liu Tongyi said, Master Bai and Zaichen can eat. I would like to find a retiring room to go have a chat with Master Shao. Would that be acceptable? I would be glad of a chance to talk to Master Mai, I said. Ryu Hei's accountant immediately went to arrange for a small room, which seemed specially made for secret business deals. It contained only a potted tree, a square table, and a few chairs. Liu Tongyi and I sat across from each other at the table. The waiter knocked on the door and came in, bringing a few dishes and a bottle of wine. He bowed and withdrew, closing the door behind him. I looked at the dishes on the table and smiled in spite of myself. We said we only wanted a room to talk, but they've sent us food and wine instead of tea. That's typical of a restaurant. Liu Tongyi also smiled. He held back his sleeve and poured the wine. Just as well. Now that the food is here, we may as well eat. I've heard there is an excellent local brewed wine in Chengshou. I wonder if this is it. I picked up my full cup and brought it to my nose. No, Chengshou's local wine is yellow. Perhaps the proprietor saw that we had come from out of town to talk business and decided to send us the local imitation of bamboo leaf green. It would seem that Master Shao had been in Chengshou for some time, said Liu Tongyi. Yes, I said. I came before the flooding started. I have only remained here so long because of this batch of silk. Liu Tongyi looked at me with a smile. I would venture to guess that Master Shao was not previously involved in the silk trade. If I were to answer in the same style, what makes Master Mei think of that? Liu Tongyi would certainly have a response waiting in the nature of, you seem familiar. That would be routine. But I had been away from court for some years, and I wasn't in the mood to go around in circles. His question had been disingenuous, but I answered sincerely. I put down my wine cup. Yes, I travel far and wide at will and pick up all kinds of things along the way. Because I have spent more time in the north, I often have things like furs and ginseng. This time I came to deliver medicines, but I happened to see that there was summer silk available, so I wanted to buy a batch. Looked at Liu Tongyi and smiled again. Unlike Master Mei, I am not engaged in regular business. I can do without this batch of silk. If you want it, I'll simply withdraw my order. I am not in the cloth trade anyway. With the flooding receded, I would gather up the property I had put away in the last 2 years and go to Java to lie low. This deal wasn't going to go through one way or another. I might as well be generous and give the silk to Master Mei. Clearly, you think I mean to steal your business, said Liu Tongyi. The reason I wanted to speak to Master Shao this evening was in order to explain this. Ryu Hei is not driving up the price of silk in order to undercut you. We want to enter into a long-term business arrangement with you. Business arrangement, huh? Yeah. Perhaps my years doing business had been too short. This was my first time hearing of such reasoning behind driving up prices and stealing business. Liu Tongyi removed a small bundle of threads and a piece of fabric from his sleeves. This is the sample you brought to the negotiation at our weaving mill. You may not know, Master Shao, that no sooner had you left than the people from the weaving mill brought this to me. I took the threads and fabric. Liu Tongyi said, I suppose Master Shao doesn't recognize this variety of silk? Indeed, I know nothing of silks, I said. I've only heard from Bai Xiang that people in Chengshou call it butter silk, and because the color isn't good, not white, that is, they don't dare to sell it elsewhere. They all dye and weave it at home to make into clothing. They call it oilcloth. It is little better than cotton, a little sturdier than ordinary silk, and doesn't wrinkle much. Perhaps in the South you've seen silk of this kind made in other places and have another name for it? Liu Tongyi listened in silence while I finished, then sighed softly. This silk does have another name. Amber gold silk. The silkworm that produces it is called the amber gold silkworm. The silkworm forms cocoons at the end of summer and only eats the leaves of the golden cedar. The silk it produces is as glossy as amber, which gives it its name. Brocade woven from amber gold silk is known as amber gold brocade and is usually made for the imperial family's exclusive use. Liu Tongyi looked at my dumbfounded expression and added, in the past, His Highness Prince Huai often wore robes made of amber gold brocade. Whoops! Nothing like trying to accidentally sell something that's made for imperial use. So butter silk was an old friend of mine. No wonder my fate was tied to it like this. I really hadn't noticed before how familiar it was. Therefore, the butter tree whose leaves gave substance to the local silkworms was in reality the golden cedar. It was often used to make coffins. I had heard that when my ashes were dug up to be given a grand funeral, they had been placed in a big coffin made of golden cedar. A boa-embroidered robe had also been used to wrap the urn containing the ashes. Perhaps that had been made of amber gold brocade. If that was truly the case, when I had fled to the South Sea, if I took along a few bolts of amber gold silk and some butter tree wood to sell in the South on the way, I could have made a nice profit. I acted as if I hadn't heard Liu Tongyi's last statement. I touched the threads and cloth and said, No wonder that as Rui Hei's general manager, Master Mei would come in person during the flooding to force up the price. Liu Tongyi said, That is precisely what I have to explain. You know that there are many firms like Rui Hei in Jiangnan, and they plant spies in our weaving mills and shops. I am afraid that by now everyone in the business is aware that there is amber gold silk in Chengshou. If we were to purchase the silk at the price you offered, it would inevitably be intercepted. Perhaps those who raised the silkworms would think we were engaged in dirty business and they wouldn't sell their silk to us again. We'd like as far as possible to keep hold of Chengshou's silk resources and continue operations going forward. But as we were previously unacquainted, I lacked an understanding of Master Shou's conduct and temper. I was concerned that if I discussed raising the price of silk with you, you wouldn't agree, so I acted as I did. I had no intention of stealing your deal. In fact, I only wanted you to be able to talk to us and to agree to raising the offering price, so we could have a long-term business arrangement in the future. I'm sorry to have overstepped. He removed a folded piece of paper from his sleeve. I took it and unfolded it to see it was a signed note returning all the silk that Ruihe had taken. The handwriting throughout the note, and for the two characters Mei Yang, was in Liu Tongyi's usual vigorous style. I couldn't help saying, I can feel confident when dealing with Master Mei. No wonder Ruihe does business on such a large scale. Liu Tongyi picked up the wine pitcher. Master Shao's way is a more comfortable one. He raised his wine cup to his lips, then put it back down. Have you always traveled like this? I just go around here and there and pick up a bit of work while I'm at it, I said. When my leg had healed and I had wandered out, I decided to do some business. The fuss about Prince Huai being absolved of wrongdoings had just died down. When I went north, I deliberately passed close to the capital to let the echoes of that event wash over me. Though I had started a new life, I still wanted to hear news of the life I had left behind. What I heard was that Liu Tongyi had resigned his position. The emperor, after assuming responsibility, had continued to manage affairs of state wisely. Prince Dai had taken all the remaining money in Huai Manor and traveled to Hainan, where he diligently strove to fulfill his aspirations. Probably he had finally realized that antiquities dealers were unreliable and was ready to do his own digging. Prince Xiang no longer took part in affairs of state, but had retired to his home to rest in his old age. The Empress Dowager had said she would eat a vegetarian diet on Prince Huai's behalf for the rest of her life. The princess's child had been born, and it was a boy. He had been taken by the Li family to raise. The princess said she would recite scripture for Prince Huai as long as she lived. I hadn't heard anything about the others. And so there shouldn't have been anything to hear. The court was stable, with no great evils, at least not anymore. They were all comfortable, living well. Everyone was happy. As I went north, my cut sleeve problem went away. After all my experiences, once I was free, common women turned out to be like fresh flowers in sweet spring water. There was Yao Dai of Baicheng, Wan Wan of Qinshou, the northern frontier's Suez, the desert's Aliana, Kim Mija in Goryeo. They were each gentle or understanding or unsophisticated or lively and innocent. They truly warmed the heart, and they had thoroughly consoled me. Outside the half-closed window, the sound of rain was growing stronger. I looked out and said, I heard you plan to leave tomorrow. I don't know whether the rain will have stopped by then. I might stay in the city another few days, Liu Tongyi said. Then we will be able to discuss this deal in more detail, I said. I would be glad if he stayed a few more days. After we parted in Chengshou, who knew whether we would ever meet again? I said to Liu Tongyi. It must be very hard work overseeing a business concern as large as Ryuhei. How did Master Mei end up in trade? Liu Tongyi looked out the window as well. When I was young, I read a romance. There was a hero in it who, after roaming around doing chivalrous deeds, switched to trade. Although the hero was in the antiques trade. the legend of the Zither hero of the late Sui dynasty. Liu Tongyi nodded. His face opened into a smile. Yes. I stood and strode to the window. Liu Tongyi came up beside me and pushed the window sash fully open. Rain struck the eaves and wet the windowsill. We returned to finish the banquet, and by the time we left Jiqing Lane, it was fully dark outside, and the rain had become heavier. Liu Tongyi and Ryu Hei's assistant were staying at an inn not far from Jiqing Lane, so they bade us farewell. There were 2 boats from the Bai residence picking us up. Bai Ryujin and I took each one. Bai Ryujin said, "It's raining hard, young fellow, so I won't stand on ceremony with you. You hurry home now." We parted ways at a fork in the road. The boat swayed amid the pouring rain as I sat in the cabin looking out. We had nearly reached the house when the boatman said, "Master Xiao, there's a boat at your gate. Do you have guests?" I left the cabin and opened an umbrella. There was, indeed, a boat moored in front of the house. At the bow, a single person stood in the rain. In the dim light of a dark lantern in the downpour, I still recognized him at a single glance. He's meeting all the boys tonight. I had thought before about what I would say to him if we ever really did meet again. My idea had been that I would treat him as a stranger, exchange some small talk, then bid farewell. But now I knew that I had been wrong. When I saw him, I couldn't say a thing. I didn't know what I could say. Say, "Excuse me, who might your excellency be?" Say, "Why are you here?" What am I supposed to say to you? How can I talk to you? On his first day in Chengshou, the Imperial Commissioner was standing here in the rain at night. The local prefect and all the government soldiers would now be certain that I was a character who merited close investigation. What were his intentions? To capture me on Chizzy's behalf and make me face the charge of treason? Or to reminisce about old times, then let me go and act as if this had never happened? Or only to ask me who I was, discover the truth? Standing there, I heard him say on the boat across from me, "You're back." After a pause, I heard myself say, "It's raining so hard. Why don't you come in?" Inside, I groped my way to the table, shook a fire stick to life, and lit the oil lamp. When I looked back by the dim yellow light, Yun Yu had sat in the place where I had sat to eat the meat earlier. He picked up the wine jar next to him and shook it. "There's still some left. May I drink it?" I remembered a summer day just like this, years ago, when Yun Yu had come to my residence. When he was about to leave, the skies had burst open without warning. Yun Yu had stood on the veranda and said, "It looks like I can't escape." And I had said, "This is heaven telling me to insist you stay. Only I didn't prepare a banquet in advance." Yun Yu said with a smile, "Just as long as there's wine." At the time, Huai Manor's cellars had been full of mature vintages, not like now, when all I had left was half a jar of Chengshou's bamboo leaf green. And Yun Yu then had not been the Yun Yu of now. Just as the Liu Tongyi I beheld back then was only an illusion I had drawn in the air, and not the real Liu Tongyi, the Yun Yu of those days, the Yun Yu who was the only person who could have an idle chat with me, whose tastes agreed with mine, was also nothing but an illusion, an image of a man drawn on paper. Only the vision of Liu Tongyi was one I had drawn myself. The image of Yun Yu had been drawn for me by the real Yun Yu. From beginning to end, it had all been false, and the illusion had long since dispersed like a cloud, gone altogether, leaving no trace. Only a lingering impression remained in my mind. Because of Chengjun, there was no one to there was no one to compare to that Suaya. It was fitting. What real person could measure up to a drawing? Chengjun had been dead 3 years. True as this platitude might have been, it was meaningless. Suaya, Suaya. That day in prison, I had called to him for the last time. After that, there was no longer anyone I could call by that name. Well, that just got kind of real. I took 2 steps forward and saluted. Your Excellency, might I ask if you are some important official? I couldn't see you clearly in the dark just now, and slighted you. Pardon my rudeness. What can I do for you on this rainy night? Yun Yu slowly set the wine jar back on the table. The oil lamp in the room wasn't very bright. His expression was a little hazy. I smiled and said, If your Excellency won't talk, I won't know how to react. The men who had come with him were all standing outside on the veranda, their posture perfectly erect, their expressions capable. It was clear at a glance that they were guards. I received no answer from Yun Yu, so I said to those outside, It's raining hard. Why don't you all come inside? Turned to find the kettle. I have no hot water prepared and cannot brew tea right away. I will have to trouble you to wait a while. They continued to stand there with their backs straight, unmoving. Holding the kettle, I looked at them, then looked at Yun Yu. I said, Gentlemen, we are strangers to each other, and I'm only an honest trader. I think you haven't come here to settle a score with me. Yun Yu's eyes wavered as he looked at me. Perhaps it was because the oil lamp was swaying in the wind. Had I made a lucky guess? Was he really here with these guards to arrest me and make me answer for my crimes? Just as well. If he really did take me back, the worst of it would be another stay in the Imperial prison. Prince Huai's big mausoleum was already built and contained a ready-made coffin for me to lie in. I took the kettle to the water barrel and bent to scoop water. Yun Yu finally spoke, but it was to address the guards on the veranda. You can all head back. I straightened up and turned my head. The guards left. Shortly after, there came the sound of splashing. It was the boat Yun Yu had come in being rowed away. Hadn't they left a little too fast? The commissioner was still sitting here. Holding the kettle, I spoke again to Yun Yu. If your Excellency has dismissed your attendants because you have something important to say, do speak openly. Yun Yu still sat there, saying nothing. He was much thinner than before. According to Cheng Shou, to manage the flooding, he must have had a weary journey. That was why he was so pale and exhausted. On his brow I saw none of his former high spirits, but instead an appearance of melancholy. Looking at him, I couldn't describe what I felt. He had to have some aim in coming here like this. It might have appeared that Yun Yu did just what he wanted or pleased, but in reality he considered every angle carefully, letting nothing slip. On his first night in Chengshou, he had cast aside his duty as commissioner to come here, and neither the local officials nor his personal guards were doing anything about it. There had to be a reason. Had he sent his guards away now, all the better to catch me later? Sitting here alone, unspeaking, had he already prepared his trap? Was he waiting for me to fall into it or fall for it? Forget it. Let him carry on how he liked. If he won't talk, I would stop asking. I filled the kettle and went to the copper stove, temporarily moved the grilling rack aside onto a small table, and asked Yu, "Why don't you sit over there for a bit? I'm going to change the coals and warm up a kettle of water. I don't want any of specks of coal to leap out and soil your clothes." Yu finally spoke to me. "There's no need to make me tea." I picked up the poker and said politely, "How can I not serve tea to a guest?" Yu paused briefly, then said, "Can I have wine instead of tea?" "Of course," I said, "but the wine isn't anything special and certainly not fit for company. I'm afraid your Excellency won't enjoy it. Your Excellency's clothes are damp from the rain and the nights are chilly. It would be better to drink some hot tea." But as Commissioner Yoon wanted wine, I wouldn't argue the matter. I put down the poker, found a clean cup, rinsed it with water, put it on the table in front of him, then refilled the wine pitcher. Yoon immediately poured himself a cup and downed it in one gulp. I changed the coal in the stove and lit it, then put the grilling rack back on top of it. I pulled over another stool to sit beside the stove. Yoon watched me roll up my sleeves and arrange slices of meat on the frame. Holding his wine cup, he looked startled. "I really have nothing to eat with wine here," I said. "I can only serve you some slices of mutton. I hope your Excellency won't find it too lacking." The fire roared and the meat on the rack sizzled. With a pair of chopsticks, I flipped the slices over one by one, then sprinkled on some salt, black pepper, and cumin. The whole time, Yoon watched, unmoving, holding his wine cup. Soon the meat was done, and I put a few pieces on his plate. Seeing him still unmoving, I said, "This is how the herdsmen in the northern desert eat. Perhaps your Excellency has never seen it before. It isn't strongly seasoned, but it also isn't very gamey. This is the only dish available in my humble abode. Please try it and see whether it suits your tastes." Yoon picked up his chopsticks and was about to place a slice of meat onto the plate next to me. "No need to be polite," I said. "Please eat it yourself. I just had 2 meals and won't be able to eat anything else for a little while. I can't eat with you." Yoon's hand hung in midair with the chopsticks. He paused, then drew back his hand and ate a slice of meat. He poured another cup of wine and again swallowed it in one gulp. Eating the meat seemed to be causing him great anguish. I couldn't resist asking, "Does it taste all right? Is there too much salt?" Yoon shook his head, and I seasoned the still grilling meat. Yoon kept watching me grill, then finally spoke again. "Have you gone beyond the northern frontier?" He was starting to ask about my whereabouts these last couple of years. Finally, we were getting to the point. "Yes," I said. "The scenery there is wonderful. Fields of green grass blending into blue sky." I tapped the grill with my chopsticks. "I brought this contraption back from the north." Yoon finally smiled. "What kind of business do you do?" I answered truthfully. "Minor trade, picking some things up here and selling them there. I've dealt in furs and medicine and things of that nature." "Oh, yes. Has your Excellency come to discuss a deal with me?" Yoon was silent again. I added some more grilled meat to his plate. "The hour is late and it's raining hard. Please speak plainly if you have business, your Excellency. You may have a hard time getting back if you take too long." Yoon's voice seemed very weak. "I didn't come here out of any ulterior motive. I just wanted to come and see." I feigned confusion. "That sounds like a joke. What did your Excellency want to see?" Yoon looked up at me, pressed his hands to his temples, and gave a bitter laugh. Yes, I actually came here, and I'm sitting here, and I have food and drink, and I'm joking. I really am shameless. How can you say that? I said. I'm only a little surprised. Though your excellency will not state your purpose, you are still an honored guest. But it really is late. When will your excellency's men be coming? Yun Yu looked at me and said, In the morning. He raised his wine cup. Since I am still a guest tonight, I'll impose on you thoroughly. What did he mean by loitering here? Any affection between us in the past had been a lie. Couldn't have come here to reminisce with me on that account. More likely, the commissioner had a heavy workload and could only come investigate me at night. Yun Yu downed one cup after another, but his face remained white, without a trace of a flush. It distressed me to see him like this. He had his whole heart set on Chizzy, and was always giving all he had. One couldn't work too hard and live properly. One needed to think of oneself. Mutton caused excessive internal heat and was hard to digest, and drinking a lot of wine at night certainly wasn't beneficial. I put the last few slices of meat on Yunu's plate, put away the grill, and stoked up the fire to heat water. When he had drunk nearly all the remaining wine, Yunu once again stared emptily at me, holding his wine cup. I scooped up water to wash the grill. Yunu stood and walked over to the basin as if he wanted to help. Without even rolling up his sleeves, he reached for the water. I quickly stopped him. No need to be polite, Your Excellency. I can do it. How can I make a guest wash up? Yunu still wanted to touch the grill. I added, It's clear Your Excellency has never done this kind of work. I don't suppose you would be able to get it clean? Oof. Okay. I know he didn't mean it like this, but unintentionally, that is one hell of a dig. I don't suppose you'll be able to get it clean. I know he didn't mean it in that sense, but to someone who is so used to reading for subtext, that would fucking hit home. Am I overreading that, or just ow? The whole do you get what I mean? You're not used to this. You don't need to polite. Your Excellency has never done this kind of work. I don't suppose you'd be able to get it clean. You're not going to be able to make up for this. It's stop trying to fix it. I'm not even so much I would be insulted, but just damn. He doesn't mean it in that way. You can tell from the writing, but holy shit, that is unintentionally a fantastic dig. And he doesn't mean it. He's just sitting here so what you doing? You're always scheming. Why are you in my house? Oh shit. Anyway, finally, Yun Yu drew back his hands and stood by the basin without moving. He only went back to his chair when I told him to sit down. Yeah, I would be insulted. Yeah, says Mars Rover, and the subtext is there. By the time I had washed the grilling rack, the water was boiling. I remembered that I still had half a pot of porridge left over from this morning, so I brought it to the stove to warm it up and serve a bowl to Yun Yu. The nights were cold, and I needed some plain hot porridge after all that meat and wine. If Commissioner Yoon fell ill, that would be another mark against me. While Yun Yu 8. I warmed up washing water in the big kettle and went to find a set of clean clothes. Your Excellency's clothes are wet. You shouldn't wear them past the night. Change into those for now. Yun Yu was quite cooperative. He did what I said. When the washing water was ready, I told him to go bathe, and he did. By the time he was finished, I had washed and put away all the dishes. Yun Yu emerged from behind the screen in clean clothes, then once again stood there blankly. Once, his stature had been the same as mine. Wearing my clothes now, he looked even thinner, like a bamboo pole holding up a robe that hung empty and floating. Probably it was because of this that he didn't seem as lively as before. It's late, I said. If Your Excellency truly has nothing urgent to say, we ought to retire for the night. He had come to investigate me, but was unwilling to speak openly. At any rate, he could stand there staring until daybreak. Yun Yu looked towards the bed. I'd originally only this one bed, which wasn't large, and of course Commissioner Yun and I couldn't share. Fortunately, Bai Ru Jin had sent over another piece of furniture a few days back. I said to Yun Yu, "Please go ahead and lie down, Your Excellency. I still haven't washed." Yun Yu once again looked at me and at the bed, then walked over to it and sat down. I put a kettle of tea on the bedside table and told him where the chamber pot and commode were. When I had my washing water ready and glanced into the inner room, Yun Yu had already laid down to sleep. The outer robe he had removed was on the chair, neatly folded. When I was through washing and looked into the inner room again, Yun Yu was lying peacefully in bed. I didn't know whether he was asleep. In spite of myself, I wanted to sigh. It had once been my fondest wish to have someone to keep me company by lamplight at night, to have someone to join me in bed. Unfortunately, I had only ever had emptiness. Fuck! That hits hard. Oh! I shut up all the doors and windows. Yun Yu rolled over in bed. I went to the outer room and moved the reclining chair by the wall into a larger space and unfolded it. Just like that, I had a bamboo couch to sleep on. Because it had been raining for several days, the nights were so chilly it didn't feel like summer. I couldn't just sleep on a bamboo couch like this, so I went to the closet and took out 2 thin quilts, one to spread on the bed and one to use as a cover. Next, I put down a cooling pillow. That would be more than sufficient to make do for the night. I unfolded the screen between the inner and outer rooms, extinguished the oil lamp, and lay down on the bamboo couch. The house was pitch dark and utterly silent. For I know not how much time had passed, I actually fell asleep and slept the whole night without dreams. Early the next morning, when I awoke, Yun Yu was already up. He had changed back into the clothes he had worn yesterday and was standing at the window. It was light, the morning sun shining in. As it shone on him, I thought for a moment that I was perhaps dreaming. Yun Yu cast down his eyes. "Pardon me for imposing last night." "It was my pleasure," I said politely. We stood across from each other and could find nothing to say. Soon, a boat came to the gate. The people standing in the boat silently bowed to Yun Yu and saluted. Yun Yu looked into my eyes. "I'll be taking my leave. Stay safe, Your Excellency," I said. Yun Yu stood there looking at me a while longer, then turned. I watched him board the boat and watched the boat slowly depart. Not long after Yun Yu left, the Bai family's boat came as well, and standing on it was Bai Ru Jin. Bai Ru Jin came inside, looked around, and quietly said to me, "Young fellow, I just happened to run into that boat coming from your place. I thought my servants must have been mistaken and didn't know what they were talking about, but it turns out it's true. He looked around again and said in an even lower voice, "It seems that the person who came to see you last night is important." "Imperial Commissioner Yun Yu," I said. Bai Rujin gave a start and stared at me. "Young fellow, you really know how to keep things to yourself. Since when have you been friends with Vice Minister Yun?" I sighed lengthily. "We aren't friends. There is an old quarrel between us." Bai Rujin gave another start. I said, "I cannot explain, but I'm afraid I'm in for a bit of trouble. I'd like you to take me to see someone, Bai Xian." The Bai family's little boat moved quickly. After a series of twists and turns through the streets, we finally stopped in front of the Gracious Reception Inn. I went inside and asked the manager for information. An attendant took me to the door of one of the principal rooms and knocked. Shortly after, the door opened and Liu Tongyi stood there blankly. I went right ahead and bolted the door. "Master Mei, I have something important to ask of you, and I hope you will agree." A trace of confusion appeared in Liu Tongyi's eyes. "Go ahead, Master Xiao." "I suppose you are leaving Chengshou on your own ship," I said. Liu Tongyi nodded. I said, "I want to leave Chengshou in secret. Might I join you?" Liu Tongyi considered in silence for a while, then said, "All right." He must have already heard the news that Yun Yu was here, but he didn't ask and he didn't say anything. I said, "Thank you, Chancellor Liu." But Liu Tongyi only smiled and said, "Master Xiao is too polite." He said nothing more. For some reason, I was feeling sheepish. "Well, Chancellor, Master..." I didn't know how to address him. "When are you planning to set out?" "Shouldn't I be asking you that, Master Xiao?" said Liu Tongyi. "When do you want to leave?" "The sooner the better," I said at once. "Even better if it could be today." "Well, at the earliest, it will be 2 or 3 days from now," Liu Tongyi said. "The commissioner has come to manage the flooding and has temporarily sealed the waterways in and out of Chengshou in order to survey the area. Otherwise, I would have left yesterday instead of delaying here for a few days." So that was it. I considered it. A delay of 2 or 3 days would still leave me plenty of time to spare, so I said to Liu Tongyi, "Then we will leave once the waterways are open. Thank you, Master Mei." Liu Tongyi was still calling me Master Xiao. He must have been telling me that the events of the past, the man named Jing Wei-yi, no longer existed for him. How I had escaped, what I had been doing these last few years. He wasn't going to ask any of it. He was always capable of exercising perfect tact, leaving the perfect amount of leeway. That was why I appreciated Liu Tongyi. "Is that all you appreciates?" "Uh-huh." Liu Tongyi also invited me to take tea with him and discuss arrangements concerning the upcoming purchase of amber gold silk. All the steps had been suitably planned out. I cared for nothing but reaching Java, and planned to give the amber gold silk to Liu Tongyi and forget about it, just as long as Bai Xiang got a nice dividend in the process. Well, that's nice that he's thinking of Bai Xiang. But Liu Tongyi said seriously that this was not possible. Things had to be done right, and business was business. He had come to make a profit, but he didn't want to take advantage. He added, "Regardless of where you wish to go, it can't hurt you to make some money to convert into more cash to have on hand. As the saying goes, one should be frugal at home but well supplied on the road." I had to put aside my original plans. Smiling, I said, "No wonder Master Mei was able to grow his business to this extent in a few short years. You are trustworthy and loyal. In a few years, there will be hardly any merchants in Xiangnan to measure up to Master Mei. Liu Tongyi smiled faintly. I'm merely doing my best to run a business. But thank you for your good wishes, Master Xiao. I sat a while longer. I had meant to invite Liu Tongyi to eat, as I would need him to look after me on the road for a few days. But Liu Tongyi seemed to have something else to do, and he seemed to be waiting for someone. Perhaps he had arranged a business negotiation. So I rose and bade him farewell. Oh boy. $5. It's Yun Yu. Right here. Slamming it down. $5. Yun Yu is the one he's waiting for. 'Cause why wouldn't it be? Just as I was about to turn and leave, there came 2 sudden knocks at the door. I was near it, so I opened it and was immediately surprised. The head of the group outside the door was also startled. It was Yun Yu. Of course it was. It was. Oh boy. Called it. When hasn't it been these two? Of course it is him. A few people stood behind him. The guards who had picked him up this morning, as well as a pudgy man in a satin robe. Him I knew. He was Cheng Shou's perfect Ma Jingru. Hey Ma! When I had first come to Cheng Shou, Bai Rujin had introduced me, and I had given him some gifts. All kinds of ideas surged up in my mind, but Yun Yu put on a thin smile. So, Mr. Xiao is here. An expression of realization appeared on Perfect Ma's face. So the expert in flood management that Lord Yun went to visit last night was this. He looked me up and down a couple of times. This Mr. Xiao. Then he glanced at Liu Tongyi. Then can this be Mr. Mei? Smoothing his beard, he took on a look of complacency. 2 experts in flood management here in this city. Heaven has truly blessed the Imperial Commissioner's efforts. It is because of His Majesty's wisdom that heaven has granted us favor. I have to head out a bit early tonight, but I'll catch up and be ready for next Tuesday. Thank you for reading and have a good night, everyone. Aw, thank you, Peacock Pages. No worries about having to head out. It's a little over 2 hours and 7 minutes in. If you want to write it down, just so you don't have to try to find your way, or I can actually put it in the chat where we are, because then I think it'll pop up. I'm not quite sure how to do that. 207 35 207. Here, we'll just do that. There you go. That way you can find it more easily. I don't know. I tried. I'm not sure how to actually make a timestamp. How do I? Oh, I can turn on timestamps. There we go. Let me try again. Here we go. Let me try. 0700. Nope, didn't work. Does anyone know how to do a timestamp? Well, if anyone knows how to do a timestamp. Nope. Does it work if I say timestamp? Nope. Okay, we're just gonna leave it. I'll look it up for next time, but that's the time that we were at. Okay. Have a good night, and see you next Tuesday. Same time. It is because of His Majesty's wisdom that heaven has granted us favor, said Yunyu dully. Then he raised his hands toward Liu Tongyi and me and said, No need to observe the formalities, gentlemen. Lord Ma and I have come again to ask for instruction on the subject of flood management. Yunyu must not yet have told Perfect Ma of my identity, and had even made up a plausible explanation for last night. But the fact that he hadn't revealed this matter to Perfect Ma did not mean that he hadn't written it in a note and then dispatched that note on the person of a guard who had already left Changshou by a fast boat and was even now on the road to the capital. Liu Tongyi took a stack of papers from his desk and passed them to Yunyu. This is what we spoke of yesterday, my family's knowledge of flood management. I do not know whether it will be useful to Lord Yun. I don't know a thing about the subject myself, so there's no further help I can offer. Yunyu accepted the papers, flipped through them, and tucked them away in his own sleeve. Thank you. Liu Tongyi smiled. I stood by, looking on, but Yunyu didn't give me another look. His manner was completely different from last night. There was a biting chill in it. The aristocratic ease that had come so naturally years ago was gone without a trace, and the official might he subtly exuded was very powerful. Perfect Ma lifted his sleeves and said, Thank you both for surpassing efforts in support of Chengshou's flood management. I will host you this afternoon at the local government offices for a banquet as a show of gratitude. Before he could finish, when a refusal was already on the tip of my tongue, Yunyu interrupted him. Misters Xiao and Mei are both of a somewhat unsociable disposition. They particularly dislike banquets and social gatherings. I will think of a way to thank them another day. There is no need for Perfect Ma to go to the trouble. Naturally, Perfect Ma obeyed without question. Yunyu's gaze finally swept over me and then fell on Liu Tongyi. He said, Thank you for your help, gentlemen. I have imposed on you both. I will not come disturb you again. I will first bid farewell and convey my gratitude later. Then he departed with his attendants and Perfect Ma, leaving behind an open door and the countless curious prying gazes of attendants and guests in the corridor. Liu Tongyi closed the door and said, Lord Yu has become aware of my presence in Chengshou not long after I arrived. I met with him yesterday. My father once engaged in flood management and left notes behind on his experiences. I have read them, but I do not have them with me, so I wrote down what I remembered to hand over to Lord Yun today. I hadn't suspected Liu Tongyi to begin with. Given Yunyu's thoroughness, after seeing me on the boat, he would immediately have screened all the merchants coming into Chengshou. If he could find me, he could certainly find the newly arrived Liu Tongyi. Liu Tongyi's business was so large that his identity must be known to everyone from Chizi to Yunyu. Yunyu must have anticipated that I would come see Liu Tongyi. I hoped that he would do as he had just hinted and let me go, though my hopes weren't high. All I could do was keep walking forward and hope that things would turn out all right. I was even regretting that I had come to Liu Tongyi for help. I had given him quite a scare when I had faked my death, and now I didn't know whether I would cause more difficulties for him. I owed him so many favors that it was hard to know how to repay them. Do you? Do you, though? You kind of got a bit screwed over by him, so I feel like at the very least you're even. I mean, he is helping you out now, but like... In the boat on the way back to my house from the inn, I spent the trip pondering again. What I didn't especially understand at present was what Yun Yu was doing. I had been unable to see through him 3 years ago, and now I certainly had no idea. He had spent the night at my house, and his manner had been strange, his words and action all greatly altered. I did not know what he wanted. I asked myself whether I still loved him, and the answer was that I did. But love was love, and facts were facts. What I wanted more was to live the rest of my life freely. I couldn't face another round of torment. In fact, while Yun Yu was lying in bed last night, I lay on the bamboo couch and sighed to myself. Chengjun had borne the reputation of being licentious, yet I had been so prudish back then. I really hadn't touched Yun Yu or Liu Tongyi. Once I went to Java, I would be unlikely to see anyone like Yun Yu and Liu Tongyi in a savage place like that. Perhaps for the rest of my life, there would be nothing but simple and passionate exotic flings. I was quite looking forward to that. For whatever reason, I still couldn't resist sighing. Alas. After I returned to the house at midday, an official really did come to make a delivery. He said this was Commissioner Yoon's gift to Mr. Shao to thank him for his pointers on flood management. It was a square box containing a small jar of wine, a wine pitcher, and 2 cups. I opened the jar and sniffed. It was a mature Yu Qiang wine. I couldn't help but smile. Yun Yu's habit of collecting hadn't changed. He liked wines with elegant names of respectable age. Even the jars had to be sufficiently fashionable and well crafted. He seemed to keep them for the sake of keeping them, not to drink them. But when he needed to give someone a gift, they were ready on hand. It was quite convenient. Yet, this set of drinking vessels didn't match Yun Yu's usual exquisite style. They were quite simple. 2 willow branches were painted on the pitcher, and 2 slanted willow leaves on the cups. I casually asked the courier for the name of the drinking vessels. They were called Willow Leaf Intoxication. I wondered where the commissioner had picked them up. When the courier was gone, I put away the wine and drinking vessels. I was just deciding what to eat for lunch when Bai Rujin arrived in front of the house with a fast boat. From his expression, I knew yet another problem was coming my way. Sure enough, without even coming inside, Bai Rujin waved to me from the bow of the boat beyond the railing. "Hop in, young fellow. A relative's coming to see you. He's waiting at the shop." I sensed the impending crash of a hammer on my head. "What relative?" I asked. Bai Rujin scratched his scalp. "He says he's your nephew." When I got on the boat, Bai Rujin kept rambling. "Your poor nephew. Just look at that boy, coming all this way through the flood just to see you. I hope there's no family emergency. Cheng Xiao is sealed off on all sides. He said he had to beg the guards for ages just to let him before he could get in." At the door of the shop, I stepped from the boat onto the second-floor corridor and immediately spotted the figure inside. Is it Chitan? That's the only nephew that kind of seemed to, not be in the capital and also actually seem to give a shit. When I took a clear look at him, I froze. Then I sighed and I think it's Chitan, but my astonishment was still greater. He latched himself at me, excited and elated. "Uncle, it really is you! It really is you?" My temples began to twitch uncontrollably. When I saw that figure, the first thought that popped into my head was, "Chitan, have you finally spent all the rest of my money in Henan?" It is him. Oh, but it's really sweet. He's like, "Are you really my uncle? Like, you're not dead?" It's kind of sweet. It's kind of hilarious, though, that the first thought he had is like, oh shit, did you spend all my money? Is that why you're excited to see me, you brat? Oh, that's funny. And that is the end of chapter 7, but I'm gonna do more. Chapter 8 isn't that long, and I'm having fun. So we're gonna keep going. I also chugged an energy drink before this, so I'm not falling asleep at the camera like last time. Which, again, sorry about that. That really was such a cute moment, Mars Rover. Like, he's like, you're alive! You're alive? Chapter 8. Right? Chitan and I sat in a small, airy room on Jiqing Lane. He sipped his wine, then brought it up to his nose and sniffed. The wine is better than I expected from a little place like Changshu. This Hua Diao is truly unique. That's bamboo leaf green, I said. Chitan looked astonished. This isn't Hua Diao? Why does bamboo leaf green taste like Hua Diao? Because it's Changshu's style of bamboo leaf green, I said. His face, still a picture of disbelief, Chitan tasted a whole cup, exclaiming again and again. Then he put the empty cup back down on the table. Uncle, where have you been all these years? Oh, all over the place, just roaming. Chitan seemed to hesitate. Then he said with a smile, I didn't think you would acknowledge me, Uncle. I only meant to come and take a look. If you'd looked at me cluelessly and asked who I was, I would have left. Even you're here, I thought to myself. If I still refused to admit anything, it would be much too unreasonable. Chitan hesitated again, then said, Uncle, you might have guessed that I actually came with Yunyu. I inclined my head slightly. Chitan continued, We came at my imperial brother's behest. Yunyu is to act out in the open, primarily to manage the flooding, but we've also come with another important assignment. I'm here in secret for precisely that reason. I remained composed and listened to him continue. Chitan paused. I and you were both issued a command by my imperial brother, telling us to bring a certain person back with us. You must have already guessed who that person is. The words were already in my throat. Chitan, though you called uncle and your uncle answered, the uncle sitting here in front of you is only a merchant. Nothing to do with that treacherous prince now sleeping inside a tomb. Do you understand? I drank my wine calmly, and Chitan said, It seemed that you have guessed, so I'll stop beating around the bush. He knocked on his forehead with an anguished look and sighed lengthily. That's right. That person is Liu Tongyi. My imperial brother wants to ask Liu Tongyi to come back and be imperial chancellor again. Look at Chitan, still being bad on those guesses. I think my imperial brother's decision is truly wise beyond compare, said Chitan with a grimace. I approve of it wholeheartedly. Zhang Ping. What's wrong with Zhang Ping? I couldn't resist asking. I recalled Zhang Ping being quite upright and incorruptible. He had accomplished a great deal at the Court of Judicial Review, solving cases deftly and speedily, his actions even more vigorous and resolute than Liu Tongyi's in the same post. That's right, said Chitan bleakly. You've been happily wandering far and wide. You don't know what we've been suffering in the capital. Jiang Ping, he is a good official, but he's really only suited to the Ministry of Justice or the Court of Judicial Review. He's simply not fit to be the imperial chancellor. According to Chitan, during the years Zhang Ping had been Imperial Chancellor. The whole court had been imbibed with the grimness of a court of judicial review interrogation. And Chizi, when he came to court every day and saw Zhang Ping standing at the head of the officials, felt as if he were on trial. Solving cases had become an addiction for Zhang Ping, especially peculiar cases like family massacres, violent murders, and so on. When he had served in the Ministry of Justice, in addition to examining new cases, he had buried himself in old files and dug up all the peculiar old unsolved cases to reinstate, and even reinstated cases that had been wrongly decided and resulted in a miscarriage of justice. Said implicated certain courtiers, giving him a reputation for being honorable that spread far and wide. After Liu Tongyi became Imperial Chancellor, Zhang Ping was promoted to Chamberlain of the Court of Judicial Review. Based on popularity and public acclaim, especially his reputation among the common people, Zhang Ping was the greatest of all the officials. After Liu Tongyi resigned his position, most of the candidates to become Imperial Chancellor after him were decades his senior. Only Zhang Ping was of similar age to his predecessor and popular, with an impressive record. Apparently, when deliberations about Zhang Ping's appointment had still been underway, Zhang Ping had earnestly declined several times. He wished to dedicate his whole life to the Court of Judicial Review. At the time, Chizi and all the officials had taken this for false modesty and necessary affectation. The night the edict came down for the appointment, Zhang Ping sat in the office of the Court of Judicial Review till daybreak, weeping over the files. Oh. As Chitan spoke, I remembered that when I had still been the treacherous Prince Huai, Zhang Ping had come once to Huai Manor on my birthday to deliver a gift. He said solemnly to me that bladed weapons hanging on the wall shouldn't be sharpened, that it would be easy for assassins to hide in the big vases by the wall, and that my nightly patrols needed nets to dredge the water features, and that Huai Manor's encircling wall should be a little taller. He looked at me with eyes filled with anticipation of my assassination. When it came time for him to bid farewell and depart, his gaze lingered significantly on the rose trellis, as if he had hoped that some assassins would leap out from its shelter, or perhaps that he could get a shovel and dig up a corpse from underneath it. I thought at the time that this Lord Shang really was too forthright. Might be a treacherous prince, but he still didn't have to be so obvious about hoping I'd be murdered on my birthday. Now it seemed that he was always like that, and I was being paranoid. Chitan said that when Liu Tongyi was Imperial Chancellor, it had been all gentle sunshine and spring breezes at court. When Zhang Ping took over, it was all chilly winds. The year before last, at least Chitan had been serving diligently in Hainan. He hadn't been at court and hadn't had anything to do with Zhang Ping. Mars Rover, I kind of feel bad for him. He just wants to be a detective, right? Like, I just want to solve cases and do justice. Justice for Jiangnan. That's kind of funny, though, that he's, like, looking at all these things and he's like, you know, someone could use that to murder you. You really should fix that. He hadn't been at court and hadn't had anything to do with Jiang Ping. When he had returned last year, bringing the antiques his diligent service had turned up to show off to Chizi, Jiang Ping just happened to be present, and Chizi had casually asked him to appraise them. Jiang Ping had then suggested 3 or more bloody histories for each antique, all murders, miscarriages of justice, unsolved cases, and scared Chitan's wife and some young princesses listening from behind a screen to tears. That night, when they came home, Princess Dai had lost her temper at Chitan. She insisted on having a Taoist priest come in to perform a cleansing ritual and insisted that Chitan throw away these haunted things, or else she was leaving him, taking the children, and going back to her parents' house. Is this Sherlock? Like ancient Chinese Sherlock? Because this is amazing. I think I like this character a lot. He is hilarious. I still have no peace at home, Chitan said bitterly. Oh, right. What Jian Ping was most interested in was you, Uncle June. He spoke more and more loquaciously and was now even calling me Uncle June. I didn't bother telling him that he was wrong and he ought to be calling me Uncle Wang or Uncle Kai. Chitan continued. I don't know if he was doing it on purpose or not, but Zhang Ping kept bringing you up over and over in front of my imperial brother, Uncle. One day he'd say that you might not be dead, that the whole thing was a hoax, so on and so on. Then not long after that, he'd say you probably were dead because of such and such. The examination of the body hadn't turned up such and such. When eldest imperial uncle first woke up and the whole truth came out, he advised that those ashes be examined. He said that the ashes of a person who had been poisoned were different. When it came time to relocate the grave, Yun Yu was responsible for it, and Zhang Ping went to Yun Yu and asked whether he could scoop up some ashes to examine them. Nearly annoyed Yun Yu to death. My imperial brother was ready to have him dragged out and beheaded. Well, anyway, a lot was happening then. Oh my god. That's amazing. Chitan looked up at me. Actually, Imperial Uncle, why don't you tell anyone but eldest Imperial Uncle about this business back then? Why didn't you tell anyone but eldest Imperial Uncle about this business back then? Even if you were afraid my Imperial brother wouldn't be able to conceal it from the Empress Dowager, you still might have told someone else. All of this is ancient history, I said. Let it go. Chen looked at me. You're right. Then, with a sudden smile, he said, It's a good thing Zhang Ping has been going back and forth all these years, saying you might not be dead or that you were really dead. It's the only reason I didn't take you for a ghost and jump out of my skin when I saw you in the boat. Momar's Rover, this is progressively funnier with each thing revealed. Right? I was kind of expecting a slightly more serious book, but this is kind of a comedy. Like, I don't know if that was intentional, but this is quite funny. He served himself some food, poured himself another cup of Chengshou's bamboo leaf green, drank a bit. Uncle, what are you planning to do now? I'm a merchant, I said. Think I'll go on roaming far and wide. Chitan said haltingly, But the fact that I've met you, even if I don't say anything, you must have... This brat was getting craftier by the day. Even Yun Yu was covering for me, but he had come running to the shop with a crowd of secret guards, those from the capital, those dispatched locally alike, and called me uncle right in front of Bai Rujin. Bai Rujin hadn't noticed anything at the time, but given his connection to the perfect, if he asked a few questions, he was sure to get the gist. Here he was looking innocent and putting the blame on Yun Yu. We can come back to that later, I said. We haven't seen each other in years. We ought to drink a few more cups. Chitan said, Uncle, you aren't mad at me for rushing over here thoughtlessly and giving your identity away, are you? I did hesitate, but I thought that since you spent the night at your place yesterday and Liu Tongyi must already know here, there's no way it could be concealed. Liu Tongyi only found out after reaching Chengshou about the same time as the two of you, I said. The words must have already known were rich with implication. I would first clarify matters on Liu Tongyi's behalf to avoid getting him in trouble. Chitan looked at me and gave a bitter laugh. Uncle, there's one thing Zhang Ping was right about. If you really weren't dead, you wouldn't trust anyone. He picked up his wine cup and drained it in one gulp. Oh, ended on a little bit of a sad note there. After 3 pitchers of wine, Chitan was beginning to slur a little. He said pitifully to me, Uncle, There's something I've been keeping bottled up that I have to tell you about. You always used to feel bad because you were suspected, but you weren't alone. For example, they actually suspected me more than you. My Imperial brother and I are brothers, after all. My Imperial father favored my mother, and you doted on me when I was little. It only got better after I spent all my money on antiques and everyone decided I was a spendthrift. You were the only one willing to lend me money, even at the risk of rousing suspicion. You'd think everyone wanted to be emperor. But my Imperial brother really is a good emperor, and he's really nice to all us brothers. What I think is, you can't always be thinking about gloomy things like that. You just have to be happy. I lifted my wine cup. I'm quite a bit older than you, but my views on this subject fall short of yours. I honor you for that speech. Chiton giggled and said, Uncle, I'm only telling the truth. But his eyes were drifting over to the place he had been constantly staring at since he and I met. After this cup, will you take that bone hairpin out of your hair and let me see it? It looks pretty old. Is it some foreign relic? Oh, you don't change, Chiton. You never change. When we left the restaurant, Chiton was stumbling a little. The secret guards who had followed him did their duty admirably, staying ambushed nearby and leaving me to prop him up by myself. Chiton wasn't going back to the government office. If he wanted to see Liu Tongyi in his current condition, instead of talking him into anything, he was more likely to send him running from the reek of alcohol. I had no choice but to haul him into the Bai family's boat and return to my little house. When I pulled Chiton onto the second-floor corridor, he looked around with glazed eyes. What an unusual-looking latrine! Nearly let go and allowed him to topple over the railing and into the water. This is where Uncle lives now. Chiton rubbed his eyes. You live in a latrine? He pointed at the wooden barrel I kept my water in. Uncle, why do you have a stove next to the commode? Is it so you don't catch a chill when going at night? I'd been planning to send him off to the bed, but when I heard this, I knew he was drunk out of his senses. Therefore, I once again unfolded the bamboo couch Bai Rujin had sent and dropped Chiton onto it. I stuck a pillow under his head, and Chiton rolled over and immediately fell asleep. I lit a fire and heated a kettle for tea, then sat inside sipping tea and checking my accounts, waiting for Yunyu or someone from the local government to come pick up Chiton. Eventually, I also got tired and went to bed to nap through the afternoon. In the evening, Commissioner Yun finally came in a little boat. Chiton was awake, but he wasn't planning to leave. He wanted dinner. Yunyu sent his guards to get some porridge and side dishes. Chiton and I sat at the table, but Yunyu stood by, I said. Please, come eat with us, Lord Yun. I've already had dinner, Yunyu said calmly. Thank you, Master Xiao. After eating, Chiton finally left with Yunyu. He did not appear the next day, so I had figured he had gone to lobby Liu Tongyi. The day after that was when Liu Tongyi and I had arranged to discuss the logistics of purchasing the silk. In the morning, Liu Tongyi arrived at the shop as arranged. Bai Rujin brought out his ledger and first verified the count, then settled the price and delivery arrangements. Bai Rujin must have already learned something. His manner was a little different from before. Instead of genially calling me young fellow at every turn, he now was a little reserved. Liu Tongyi, however, behaved as usual, still acting the part of Master Mei. When we had paused after a lengthy discussion to drink some tea, while Bai Rujin went to use the latrine, I smiled and said to Liu Tongyi, I hear Master Mei has had a guest come by recently who wanted to convince you to go into a different trade. Master Xiao is well informed, Liu Tongyi said, smiling. I find my current trade congenial and have no intention of going into another one for the time being. Very good, I said. I was worried that Master Mei would change professions and wasn't planning on transporting me anymore. Holding his teacup, Liu Tongyi said, Master Shao's transport is a major transaction. Am I likely to renege on my promise? I saluted grandly and said with a smile, With Master's Mei promise, I am as confident as Kong Ming borrowing the eastern wind. There is no call to borrow the eastern wind, Liu Tongli said languidly. A southerly wind is rising, and the floodwaters are falling. The day after tomorrow, we can set out. The next day, Bai Rujin did not visit. Chitan must have gone to be a mouthpiece and had no time to come, so I was free to pack my things at home. I had gone far and wide over the last few years and was accustomed to traveling light. As long as I had money, I would be able to buy anything I needed. I would certainly bring none of the things I had purchased in Changsha. I packed 2 changes of clothes and gathered up all my money. Picked out a few of the local baubles I had bought in various places over the years. Chitan would probably enjoy the rest, so I left them in the closet, confident that he would find them. He probably will. The drinking vessels Yunyu had given me were inconvenient to bring along, but he had gone to the trouble of giving them to me, after all. It wouldn't look good to leave them behind. I found some pieces of soft cloth, wrapped them up, and shoved them into my travel bag. That was it for packing. What, you're not going to bring your grill? Come on. At midday, I took the Bai family's boat out to eat. After returning, I lay in bed and took a midday nap. I felt quite emotional. I had bought a house, made myself a nest at last. Thought I could settle down for a while. Now I had to start drifting again. It seemed it was my destiny to lead the life of a drifter. When I opened my eyes, I saw a person in the outer room. It gave me a start. He was dressed casually, sitting at the table. It was Yun Yu. I stood up and straightened my clothes. When did you arrive, Lord Yun? However did you find time among all your cares to come to my humble abode? Yun Yu stood from the table. I arrived recently. I saw you were asleep, so I did not disturb you. I hope you will forgive me. Smiling, I said. It's no problem, Lord Yun. I went to the outer room and lit the stove to heat a kettle of water, pulled up a chair to the table. Please sit, Lord Yun. Tea will take a moment. Yun Yu sat across from me. Master Shao leaves the door open while sleeping. Are you not afraid of thieves? You're joking, Lord Yun, I said. I'm a single man and empty-handed. The thieves wouldn't come if I invited them. Smiling, Yun Yu said, You're the one who's joking, Master Shao. You are a major merchant who has traveled far and wide with ample property. How can you call yourself empty-handed? You packed your bags this morning. Are you planning to travel for business? I had thought that my heart wouldn't sink, but when I heard this final question, I still felt it drop. I smiled as well. Thank you for taking the time to check up on me, Lord Yun. I was only cleaning up. I suppose your men don't have very good eyesight. Yun Yu sat slouched at the table, looking at me. Where are you going? Are you interrogating me, Lord Yun, or merely asking? The atmosphere grew slightly rigid. Just then, the water on the stove boiled. Smiling, I said, I'm joking. Don't take offense, Lord Yun. I stood and picked up the copper kettle. I extinguished the fire, brought out a teapot and teacups, and brewed tea. As I was rinsing the cups, Yun Yu's voice came slowly from behind me. If your Highness Prince Huai leaves again, things will be very awkward. I turned around and sat back down at the table. I laid out the cups and poured tea. Yun Yu slowly went on. There are secret guards near this house. I positioned them yesterday. After your Highness encountered His Highness Prince Dai, it was only natural for me to make these arrangements. There were no guards before, though I suppose your Highness won't believe that. He laughed softly. At any rate, I've never done anything good. Perhaps I ought to have a proper chat with Yun today. Now that I thought about it, he and I had never actually spoken the truth out in the open. So I sighed and said, Yun, let us speak openly. When I spoke the name Yun, the expression of the man across from me changed abruptly. His brow eased a great deal. While his expression was admittedly still solemn, it was the familiar gravity with which Yun had used to discuss serious affairs. I got right to the point. Yun, are you here today because you are planning to keep me in Chengshu? I am not so bold, said Yun. Your Highness may say all you like that Prince Huai has been dead for 3 years, but as far as I am concerned, the person sitting in front of me is still His Majesty's uncle. In all the world, no one but His Majesty would dare to keep your Highness anywhere. Your Highness ought to know that a lackey like me would not commit such an offense unless acting under orders. But since your Highness and Prince Dai have met and recognized each other, there is no way for this to remain unknown to His Majesty. If your Highness leaves now and leaves with Liu Tongyi, it will likely cause trouble and embarrassment for many people, Liu Tongyi included. I'm only being honest. If I have been disrespectful, I hope your Highness will make allowances. I nodded. All you say is indeed reasonable. I will reconsider leaving. I picked up my tea and drank. Since we were speaking openly, some things came out of my mouth spontaneously. You've changed a great deal, Yun. Yun held back his sleeve and picked up his cup. So have you, your Highness. Traveling far and wide naturally weathers one's face. Being at court exposes one to all manner of attacks. I was silent. His position was indeed an awkward one. It was easy to imagine what his lot had been at court these past few years. So I asked, is Grand Tutor Yun well? Yun was silent a while, then nodded slowly and said that he was. After 3 years of cultivating his mind in a temple, he had calmed a great deal. I had meant to ask about Chizzy as well, but asking Yun might have been taken as an insinuation, so I changed the subject again. When you stayed here the other night, I refused to acknowledge my identity only because I did not wish difficulties to arise once again because of the past. In fact, there were things I wanted to say to you then. Yun looked intently at me. I said, years ago, while I was defeated by the plans His Majesty, Liu Tongyi, and you yourself had made. Before that, I was plotting against you and your father. So you and I are even. If I had told His Majesty the truth earlier, later circumstances would not have arisen. Therefore, there need be no debate over right and wrong. There is no need to take offense. Yun's expression went through several alterations. I was like, wait a minute. He seemed to want to say something, then stopped himself. Finally, he smiled and said, after all these years away from the palace, your Highness's mind truly is as open as the sea and sky. It is true that going so many places has given me a fresh understanding of the vastness of the world compared to the insignificance of man, I said. Then I spoke a little of some of the places I had been over the last few years and got out the local specialties that I hadn't packed up and meant to leave to Chitan and showed them to him. An oxhorn cup, a gemstone pendant, sheep bone dice, small stone carvings. Yun Yu looked at each one avidly, but at last he picked up a piece of cloth I'd used to wrap the dice, unfolded it, and smiled without speaking. I saw something strange in his smile. I looked at the cloth again and saw that it was only an old and wrinkled, coarsely made piece of patterned fabric. I didn't understand what he was seeing. Yun Yu spread the piece of cloth flat on the table, turned it around, and pushed it up in front of me. He pointed at one particular place. In the corner where he had pointed, I saw a crookedly embroidered mess. Looking more closely, it seemed to be small writing. Uh-oh! For my beloved Kai Long, do not forget, Mija. It looked like the gift that girl from Goryeo, Kim Mija, had given me before I left. And those words, seemingly, she had asked me to teach her to write them. And I had given her a 5-character quatrain in answer. After I read it to her, she was so moved that she wept bitterly and said that she had never heard anything more beautiful than this poem. Then a ripple surged up in my heart, and I said insincerely that that piece of cloth was the most beautiful embroidery I had ever seen. I folded it away over my careworn heart, which felt a moment's solace. Oh, the events of the past. The corners of Yun Yu's lips tipped up. He said, "Seems this was quite the romantic affair. Neither the cloth nor the embroidery technique seems to belong to this country. It must have been a foreign romantic affair." A little embarrassed, I said. "Merely a young lady I found congenial." I'd seen him admire the oxhorn cup earlier, so I offered it to him and said, "I received a set of drinking vessels from you a couple days ago. Why don't I give you this in return?" Yun Yu froze. "That's most polite, Your Highness." He refused for a while, but I pressed it on him, so he accepted. This talk seemed to have completely dispersed the emotional frustration brought about by the events that had taken place years ago. Yun Yu's awkwardness on the night he had spent here had gradually given way to a more natural manner. After a few more exchanges, he stood and bade farewell. But before leaving, he asked me, "On what day had Your Highness planned to depart?" Because this concerned Liu Tongyi, I did not give an honest answer, only said, "In a few days." Yun Yu said nothing else. He boarded his boat and left. That evening, I went to see Liu Tongyi and said that we could forget about what I had asked him for. I wasn't leaving. After hearing me out, Liu Tongyi asked, "Does Master Shao not want to leave, or do you feel unable to leave?" I froze. Then I said that naturally I wanted to leave as soon as possible, but it seemed leaving wasn't going to be so easy. "The authorities have issued a decree permitting free movement in and out of Chengshou starting tomorrow, with no further restrictions," Liu Tongyi said calmly. "What difficulty could there be in 2 traveling merchants like Master Shao and myself leaving?" "I'm afraid of causing trouble for you, Rancy." Liu Tongyi raised his eyelids and looked at me. "It makes no difference whether you go or not." At these words, everything suddenly became clear. I had already brought Liu Tongyi down with me. It really was all the same whether I went or not. So I immediately took the boat, first to see Bai Ruqin and give him a brief explanation. I only told him that a deal had come up and I was leaving all matters in Chengshou in his hands. Then I returned to the little house, took my luggage, and boarded Liu Tongyi's merchant's ship. It was indeed extremely easy for the ship to leave Chengshou. The guards let us pass without even a cursory inspection. Yun Yu and Shitan were probably still in dreamland, not yet out of bed. As the sky began to lighten, Liu Tongyi's ship sped through the water with the wind at its back, carrying me away from Changsha. And that is where we are going to end tonight, because that is the end of chapter 8. That was a really good session tonight. Stream, reading, whatever it was. I enjoyed these 2 chapters. That was really good. I kind of didn't know where we were going to go from that. Like, was it going to... I like that they continued kind of with a time skip, because I think it was a really interesting angle to take. And I've enjoyed this. I'm kind of curious if we're going to get another time skip, or we're going to continue on with this. Because, I mean, honestly speaking, 1, 2, 3. It's 2 or 3, depending on if we want to have like a mega reading the next 2 times, which we actually could, because I will be... Yeah, we could actually do this in 2. Because I'm willing to do a long session on Tuesday with 3 chapters. Well, it'd be more than 3. Like, that would be probably a pretty long session. And that might actually finish out the book. Because otherwise, it's going to be Tuesday and then like 2 chapter, or like a chapter or 2, very small chapter or 2 to finish it out. That's not even. And then some of the extra... Yeah, that's such a short chapter. No, we can finish this Tuesday. And then, depending, we could actually do the rest on the next Tuesday, like the extras. Because I don't need to do stuff this coming Wednesday, so if people want, we can finish the main story next week on Tuesday. And then, depending, we can either break up the extras into 2 sessions, like Tuesday, and then next Thursday I'm getting my tattoo. So we could either do it Wednesday and like finish it out, or we can wait till Tuesday. We'll figure that out next week. But I think we're just going to do a super long reading next Tuesday. So this coming Tuesday, we're going to do chapter 9 through chapter 12, which is the end of the book. That is... Yeah, it's just 25 more than what we're used to. So it'll probably be like 3.5 hours. So prepare for that. But yeah, then it'll be the end of the main story. But like the extras are like about 1/5 of the book. Easily. Maybe 1/6. So that'll easily be 1 or 2 just for the extras. But yeah. Wow. What a good time. I'm looking forward to see where this goes. Like, are they going to escape? Are they going to be chased? Are they going to have their happy ending? I kind of want to like see a little more of Yoon Yu's like I want to hear a little more about the backstories like going on. Wonder if we'll see any other perspectives other than Hwai's. guess we'll find out on Tuesday. All right. But anyway, this has been a lot of fun. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And for anyone listening later, I hope that you have enjoyed, and we will see you next time. But for now, I'm tired. So it is time to say good night. Bye.